Where's it the top two? Where's the top two? Okay, here we go. Man, okay. Can everybody see me? Can everybody hear me? Is there a thumbs up on the sound? Can everybody hear me? Okay, thank you, Jessica. Okay, I apologize, everybody. I can't do nothing but laugh it off. I mean, I think it was another attempt to discourage me from doing this, doing these lives. The first few minutes, there's only maybe 8, 9 people there, and I asked, can everybody see me, hear me? Nobody said anything. I kept talking, and then I didn't see anybody say anything. I started going on, and I didn't look at it again. So all that was in vain. I'll tell you the same thing that I had said last time, okay? I've got, I actually want this to be kind of organized and succinct. So what I've done is actually, I've got this organizing, I have this certain way I want to do this, which is me telling you guys all the information, and then I'll look at the chat and try to discuss and talk with everybody. The only problem is that when I look at the chat too much as I'm trying to do the information, I get all distracted and I start going all over the place. So hopefully this one will go very smoothly. And I thank everybody that came back here, and a number of people stayed in there for 46 minutes, 47 minutes, although you couldn't hear me. So thank you very much. I mean, that means a lot to me. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so to the information. Since this is daylight savings, and the one that I really don't like because it's starting to get dark around 5 o'clock, you know, the worst time of the year when you were a kid. By the time you got out of school, it was already dark. So this is a good time, I think, to talk about time technologies, time science, and time travel. So something I want to kind of address, and so this is going to be basically everything you saw last time, but you'll hear me this time. Excuse me. So this is the picture. I want to go over this again because this is the picture that I did the last live feed on. That's the 1941 Puerto Rico, Korean UFO picture. Okay. And I talked about this on Jessica's show the other day too, but I forgot I had a picture of this during the last feed and I didn't show it. So what I just want to point out about this, okay, is that when you're dealing with a craft that is dealing with this life energy, it runs on life energy or prana energy, chi energy, or quote unquote orgone energy. All right. Like I mentioned before, these craft will actually suck up water from underneath and then use a conversion process to pull the orgone out of that. Then they release that orgone, that life energy, as a skin around, as a gravity modification field around the craft itself. Okay. So when I look at a craft like this that is older, a picture like this, that's like from the 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, when you're dealing with that type of a propulsion system, okay, that orgone, that propulsion system that has a negative effect on film emulsions, all right? So it creates a void, that dark void. When I see a dark void like that underneath the craft on an old ship or old picture like this, it tells me it's probably real, okay? And more than that, this is not just the void you're seeing there, but also if you look over here in the corner, you see that? It's actually starting to activate the gravity modification field to surround around the skin of the ship, okay? Which means this thing is about to go into a frequency jump. It's about to go through a black hole, through a Mako. All right, and we've talked about that quite a bit, how sometimes when they do that, you'll see one UFO there, and then all of a sudden there'll be two, then there'll be one, and then that one will be gone. That's the quantum hologram that you're seeing there. Anyway, going back to this, just that's two things that are interesting about this craft, and something else that signifies to me that this picture is authentic, okay, is this light up here. See this light at the top? That light is called a directional field emitter, okay? And the reason why I'm bringing this up and showing you this again is because it ties directly into this craft that I've showed you before, And this is the one that was, I call it amazing morphing UFO. But this is one of my first experience that I had adult onset, that had a bunch of missing time, okay? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because on the top here, it's got a directional field emitter. And I had mentioned to you before, when this thing is circling the light, when it comes my way, my head is going woo, 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 like I'm being tuned in. And now I know I can tell you that they were tuning in to my brain waves. Okay. And I've spoken how the Makos operate like the microtubules of our brain, who are spherical and helical, and they're helical and actually that they're spherical. And so are actually microtubules. And that's how we access the Makos, AKA the Akashic records, through the brain waves. But that's what they were using here. Okay. And something else I want to throw in, a double effect, a double purpose that this directional field emitter has. And I've got videos on this YouTube channel about all this stuff. So nothing I'm saying is new, but I was trying to tie it together for everybody. Okay, so another thing that this does, it emits a plasma beam that opens up a Mako. Okay, and on this plasma beam, once they open up that Mako, they actually ride the gravitational waves through. And in the case of this, all right, what I was witnessing, I've showed you this before, what this craft did, okay? It started changing on me when it was in the sky. First, it flipped into this, it's a bright star. Then this, okay? Then, sorry, there's a light glaring off here, but I can't seem to help that, I'm sorry. And then the last is this, it turned into this tri-pyramidal Merkaba. I've described before, that's actually given pretty good reference to in J.J. Hertog's book, Keys of Enoch. He talks about tri-pyramidal Merkabahs. That's what I saw, okay? This thing looked like a crystal, like a type of a ball with these stacks, the stalagmites coming out of it, and then it was glowing inside, or the stalactites, anyway. But it's glowing inside, and that's what this thing did. It was what I was seeing was this craft, after emitting that beam, okay, it's changing. I'm watching a pattern of unfoldment to match its destination, which I believe was in another universe. And I said before, have you got universes that are based on not the spin like us, based on the crystalline amorphous metals and other things like that. Okay, so that's what I believe definitely was happening here. So that's why I want to bring up that field emitter and why I think that's important, just for everybody to understand there. Okay, tying that in, and the reason why I want to bring this together, that gave me an absolute obsession about time travel technology and time travel, was the fact that I saw a doppelganger of myself when I was 7 years old. Okay, and he appeared to look like on the bridge by where I lived, and he appeared as I did when I was 22. I wound up having an outfit just like this cat had on back in the days of cross colors. Y'all remember that? It was a cross colors outfit, and this brother had that on this bridge, and he looked related, but he wasn't my brother's. One of my brother lived in LA, the other one was working downtown, definitely wasn't him. And besides that, his hair was like this. And about when I was 22, I cut off my quote unquote wave nouveau. That's sorry crap. But so that, so that's the way this cat looked. And that actually shocked me. I ran home, tried to tell my mother, but she's on the phone. And I just wanted to go to just try to get a look at this guy, Now taking this and going a step forward with this. Where should I start with this? Okay. There was this gentleman, okay, that I had this car accident and I was recovering. I was in a coma for about 2.5 weeks. It took me about, several weeks to remember who I was, almost a month. All right. And during that time, I take a hematoma to the frontal lobe, hematoma to the brainstem, hematoma to the caudal lobe, and I also had what's called diffusion axonal, which is like shaken baby syndrome. Okay. And that's when your brain actually turns in the case. And it was the brain swelling that was actually going to kill me. So that was something that just was massive in my life. But when I'm recovering, a friend of mine comes by and he starts saying, man, you always used to talk about Art Bell back in the 90s and stuff. And I've been listening to all this time stuff. And there's this guy on there that said he made this time device, and it's really tripped out. Yeah. So I just went back and started listening to it. The guy named Stephen Gibbs. Now, I found his number, all right? And, you know, I was sitting around recovering, so I had nothing else to do. I recovered. I found this guy's number, and I called him. And the first thing he says to me is, you know, I wonder when I hear from you again. I was like, what? He said, well, I figured you took that other machine and you just disappeared with it. You took off. And this device is called the hyperdimensional resonator. Here, as a matter of fact, here. He says, I wonder what happened to you, you know, like, yeah. I said, you've never talked to me before. And he says, oh, yes, I have. I can hear him turning papers and stuff. He's saying that he recognized my inflections. He said, but you sound a little older than you did last time. So I just, you know, go with it. First, I'm pretty much going to try to prove this guy is a kook. He's got to be insane. All right. I mean, come on, man. So anyway, we get to talking, and I said, you definitely never talked to me before. I said, when was this? He's saying it was 2 years ago. And right at that point, it was 2 years before that I was in this accident. And the date we were talking, I was like, I was in a coma 2 years ago. You definitely did not talk to me or sell me one of these. And then he gets quiet for a second. He says, have you seen your double yet? That caught me off guard. Okay, it kept me on the phone, definitely. And he starts saying, you know, he did something to your timeline. He did something to yours and something to mine. He said, did you touch him? Well, let me ask you a question. I said, maybe. Why? He said, did you touch him? I said, no. Actually, I walked towards him. And he stepped back and threw his hands up and said, no. He said, that's because if you would have touched him, there'd be parts of your life right now you wouldn't remember. And, you know, so that is one thing that, you know, caught my attention. So I wind up sending this guy $75, and he sent me one of these machines that he said was normally $400. No way I would pay that for this. Anyway, 75 is bad enough. But this is it, okay? This is this hyperdimensional resonator. On my YouTube channel, I've got 2 videos under the playlist Time Travel and Time Science, and that I put that on the first. Oh, I'm sorry, that was in the other chat. Anyway, it's the one that's on a playlist under Time Technology and Time Travel. And there's 2. I showed this machine both times. The second time, I actually took it apart and showed how it functions. And there's something inside of it called the caduceus coil that actually affects the time field, and especially watches if you just have like crystals in them and stuff. So anyway, this thing comes with, I don't have it in here. It's a huge electromagnet. Okay. It's like this big. And also a headband that's like a guitar cord. Okay. So I took this to my friend, Bill Spicer, that I did the first interview with ever, who's responsible for me coming forward. And he's an engineer. I had him take this thing apart and look at it. I say, man, make sure this doesn't fry my balls. Try to use this thing, excuse my language. You know what I mean? So he checked it out and everything. And this is a radionics device, okay? You can see here where the electromagnet goes in, the time coils, which is a headband, a guitar headband, I swear, guitar string or something like that. Anyway, but and you see that's like a deal right there. Let's the witness well. You put stuff in there and it's like a whatever crystals, whatever it is. So it's a radionics device, and it doesn't do time travel, but I did have a couple of weird experiences with it using it. One would be this missing sushi and things like that. So I called this guy back, and one thing was my friend has these other journals, but I show him in those videos that I ordered like 5 or 6, 7 journals from him that he said would come in 2 weeks, that come like the next day. And they've got very advanced, some of them are other time devices, and a lot of them are a heck of a lot more advanced than this one. And so I called him and I said, hey man, you know, where'd you get these schematics for these other ones? And he says, from time travelers from the future, and one of them was myself. So, okay. And then he goes on to tell me about some type of a time travelers symposium for inventors, time device inventors, some type of a conference symposium that he's been invited to before, that a lot of people that show up wind up disappearing. And he started telling me there was some type of a sanitarium somewhere. Sorry, it's just been so long ago, that a lot of the people in there claim that they're time travelers. And he said that's where a lot of these inventors were getting sent to. Said he'd been invited. Can't verify anything. I'm just relaying information to you. This guy, I said, what? Tell me something about it. He started saying that, he said, the timeline I come from, there was no Twilight Zone show. I sold one of these HDR units to Rod Serling, and Rod Serling told me he was going to go in the future and make a show called Twilight Zone. And I said, okay, yeah, right. And he started saying, have you watched the original Twilight series? I said, all of them, pretty much. And he said, have you ever noticed how they're about time travel? The next thing is, I used the machine and I jumped to the Cretaceous period. And the dinosaurs, the T-Rex almost ate me. The T-Rex and the Allosaurus look like birds. They're not telling us the truth. Okay. Then he says this. He says he jumped to the pearly gates and he got in an argument with St. Michael or whoever it is up there and couldn't get in. They made him come back. Sorry, that sounds a lot like Larry David. Larry David, the Kirby Enthusiasm, was up there arguing at the gates. They wouldn't let him through. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I told him, I said, man, what's interesting? You're selling me that. Anybody ever tell you, man, that this stuff doesn't work, man? I said, it doesn't work. But the odd thing is I had been taking it apart and looking at it and saying some things that I could actually put involved there. And we're going to talk about more time science here and put in here that something I think would generate closed time-like curves. And that's kind of what the caduceus coil does. The caduceus coil is a piece of copper that's spirally wrapped. Okay. That's what really this thing runs on. Anyway, so I said, well, it doesn't work, but I think I could put some things in there that might make it work. And he started yelling at me. He said, I want to hear that shit from you. He said, my equipment wouldn't work on you if you're one of those soulless alien hybrids. If you're a soulless alien hybrid, my technology won't work on you. And I sure don't want to hear how the hell you think you could fix it. It works just fine unless you're a hybrid. And, I said, oh, yeah, it's definitely that I'm a hybrid. And it's not that this is just BS that doesn't work, right? That's what it is, no doubt. And I wound up cussing that cat out and hanging up in the end, But point being, I never even said I was a contactee. I never even went into that with him. So, but this is, anyway, it doesn't work. But that's just an example of what I'm bringing up concerning all this. So let's go into some of the time technologies, all right? Sorry, I didn't mean to go on so long about that ridiculous guy. I've had several people send me schematics saying that they gave him the patents for that and the design for that. And everyone that sent me that doesn't look like anything that's on the inside of there and doesn't even hold up to what they're saying. It gets real deep when you start going into some of this stuff. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about, something else that connects to why I have this obsessed with time travel, time technology. Not just the brother on the bridge, but this, and I mentioned this last time. This is the craft that I saw with my mother when I was 7 years old, all right? And it's got the windows on it, and it's got these grates. And I mentioned before, that's odd to me because these other ships I've been on board are organic, and they don't have windows, okay? And on board that craft and seeing this, for reasons not being able to fully remember it, my brother Mitch was in the chat last time. He commented on this, all right, my older brother. And the fact that I started getting, as time went on, it started getting foggy about seeing this thing. And when I was in my 30s, my mother was going to throw out my Omnis, had to go to her house, and I go to see in the Omni magazine, look at these UFOs, and she's pointing, well, that's what the one UFO you I saw. I was like, what? And she had to really kind of tell me some things about it to trigger my memory. I've got a good, she kept saying, you missed a creepy Star Trek memory. You can't remember seeing that UFO? And she was taking me back to take in my Stretch Armstrong. I had the Stretch Monster. I had started leaking this red stuff. So anyway, and we saw this thing. Now, I got a little bit riled because I couldn't fully remember like I should. And that only happens with the star beings when they're involved. And that's when I decided to finally get one of my regressions, okay? And I had learned hypnosis, but it was for myself for missing time. And then I couldn't hypnotize myself. It works great on other people, but not myself. I had to go let somebody else actually take me through the process, all right? And I just wanted to see in the regression, I wanted a good description of the ship. I wanted to see it clearly. so I could get a drawing of it made. But during the regression, it turns out I'm not just watching that thing, but I'm here too. And that was happening at the time. This gentleman here that says his name was Alex, Allex, A-L with the apostrophe L-E-X is what he's putting in my mind. This is a metal, like metal wall, it looks like. He goes like this, and suddenly I can see. She did a really good job on this, but this was actually we were in a mall, outside mall. You could walk outside to get to other malls, but that's my mother and I down there. And I could see down through us, I could see the water tower all the way through, okay? These gentlemen with Alex looks like fraternal twins to me. They're not identical, and they never said anything. They'll have these boxes on the front and the back, and these chairs are even smaller than their boxes, as you can see, okay? And I'm pretty sure that what this was is quote unquote a time ship. I think they're historians. I did a video where I nicknamed them the Temporal Integral Commission that I stole from Star Trek Enterprise. They're like time cops, like Van Damme, except maybe they're not so cool that they jump down on the ground and the semi goes over them. Anyway, but I think that's what they do. I think that they're not just monitoring the timeline for incursions. I think they also are historians. And I think this device here, this thing that's looking through, I was looking through the floor, is what we would call similar to what they call the etheric chronovisor, which is supposed to be something the Vatican got from a crash ship. So, okay, so, and I think that that is the perfect way to actually be a historian in that way, without messing up the timeline, but to actually observe and get actually data by observation, holographic form, the way that I think they're doing it there. And just a little additive one to this, a gentleman, Alex, that's him also, okay, that I met in that antique shop, and he gave me this rock that I told you was connected to the that show I was watching, Underground the Mountain, on Nickelodeon, that came on right after You Can't Do That on Television, where poor Moose and Alanis Morissette were always getting, was it slimed? Anyway, so that's just something I'll bring up there, and that's this rock here, but I won't go into that too deeply. But that there is another reason. And, you know, one more thing about him, all right, is that when I first did come forward, I kind of clown people about all the Pleiadians looking like Fabio and Kevin, was it Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, and maybe Christy Brinkley. But I was unaware at that point that I had actually interacted with Nordics to a degree. Okay. And it's so weird because this lady White Dove had told me, she said, you know, your friend on board that ship gave you something. And I was looking at her, I said, I've never seen this ship with a parent. She said, look at me, you probably just can't remember it. That was about you. They weren't just there for no reason. Look at it like, you new age freak, whatever, man. I blew it off, and then years later, this comes up, and I put this together. So anyway, that's the reason I have this obsession with time technology. Going further into this, okay, let's talk quickly about the different types of time control technology. All right, we've got ones that, first of all, we need to discuss time, space, motive force, okay? Time, space, motive force. And what that actually is when you have something like the Earth, a sphere, an oval, like the Earth here. Anyway, we won't go into that. I'm not going to touch that. But what it actually creates is what's called an inertial drag frame, okay? Which means as down at the bottom, it starts actually creating this inertial frame drag, okay? And that actually, within that, creates what's called closed time-like curves. And that's what's really needed for a lot of these different time technologies, all right? So these closed time-like curves are controlled there. So for example, when you start dealing with technology that's time warp fields and warp fields, those are magnetic fields that actually contain the drag frame, actually, okay? Contain the closed time-like curves. That's what time warp fields actually are. And that's, you know, kind of takes us into that. So I think that's worthy, the different ways that they're actually looking at that and actually warping space in that way. So that's another type of technology we should look at. And something else I want to bring up, another type of time technology, okay? When talking about these two craft, okay, and what I mentioned about the directional emitter, okay, that also takes us in what I think they're using as part of time technology that is called Alcubierre warp drive, ALCUBIERRE, I believe, Alcubierre warp drive. And what that actually does is creating a wave, all right, that actually contracts space, and the ship actually goes through and it bends it around the back of it, okay? So that's another way of Alcubierre warp drive. And I think that's actually what they're doing in terms of using that plasma beam to open up a Mako, to open up the aperture and then go through it. And then that's why you see that quantum hologram there. You see two of them, then you see one. That's what's going on there. So that's another type of warp drive, or another type of time technology. We'll just get out of the way. And I've talked about before what are called Fermi bubbles. Okay, and Fermi bubbles are actually over galaxies. They're gamma rays, and they're gamma rays that connect all the galaxies. And if you're dealing some type of Alcubierre warp drive that's dealing with gamma, okay, you've got the perfect track all across the universe. But you see, but we don't hear about that enough because that's information I get from the star beings, okay? I can't speak for all these other people. That's the type of information I get, not all this other stuff I hear so much about. And I think that's the stuff that may help us scientifically. Sorry, I got to use science. It's not an answer all, but at least it gives a foundation for this crazy stuff I've experienced. Anyway, going forward with that, something else I want to talk about. Electron diffuse regions. And I've mentioned this on Jessica's show several times, okay? The electron, and I've got video on this too, videos over all this stuff. An electron diffusal region is actually where you have the magnetic fields of the Earth and the magnetic fields of the sun where they join, okay, where they come together. At that point, every 8 hours, there's a dimensional door that opens. Now, this is not just Barry Littleton talking. NASA studied this. You can look up the studies. Okay, there's a dimensional door, a doorway that opens between every 8 hours. Okay, when we start dealing with civilizations that are even type 1, where we'll go to next, which means the parent star is your power source, let alone those that go to level 2, which means they're dealing with space as the power source. Okay, and then you go to level 3 or type 3 civilizations that are actually dealing with Makos and the fabric of the Mako itself as a power source. And that takes us all into the things I've talked about, the Makos, and how the Makos are actually the Akashic records, how the Makos, these black holes, are the hard drive of the universe, and they function on the same way as our brain waves, as their conscious waves, and conscious waves occur spherical and helical, and the microtubules of our body, especially our brain, is spherical. So that's how we access the Akashic records, consciously through our brain waves. I think that's very, very important. So when you're dealing with those type of civilizations, they may no longer be in existence, but they still are through the Akashic records. Don't want to talk about this again, but that's the Mako. The Mako is the mechanism inside the black hole that holds the information. When something passes through, okay, whether it's destroyed or not, I don't know, but it creates that quantum hologram on the surface. And that goes like the regosphere. It goes around the Mako, okay? So that's how that actually works, what the Akashic records are. So when dealing with these ships and things, it's just important to bring that up too, okay? Because wormholes is another way of time travel. Wormholes, also called, what is it, the Einstein-Rosenberg bridge, but that actually is just creating a shortcut into space. I'm not so sure that they're not using gravitational waves too once they go into the wormhole. Okay, another one would be circulating light beams. Circulating light beams, which would actually also encase closed time-like curves. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ron Mallett that I've mentioned before. He used to be at the University of Connecticut. After his father died, he created a time device that is using another type of time technology also, which would be quantum tunneling. Quantum tunneling, or the propagation of data backwards in time. Okay, that one cannot be used for matter transport back in time, but it can be used for signals and waves And we start dealing with something like that, you know, they've got, we type that in. It's also called superluminal communications. Type that in and look at the companies that are actually trying to do that, are doing that. And it gets really scary when you start thinking about they could send things like Morse code back in time to somebody like Hitler to try to make sure he didn't lose. These are people doing this. So again, food for thought on that. Anyway, back to Dr. Mallet. Sorry. Dr. Mallet has a system for sending information like that, quantum tunneling, but he's using circulating light beams. In this case, lasers. All right, lasers that are all in this configuration. Check out his machine, and that's what he's using for superluminal communications. All right. Let's see. Something else. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Soho too. Okay. The Soho website. I think that's important to bring that in. And Soho is the satellite that has been around taking pictures of the sun every 2 minutes for like over a decade and something. And you can go to the Soho website and go to the archives and look up. Soho actually takes pictures every 2 minutes of the sun in all these different nanospectrums. Okay. So if you go on the data on the website, go into data, start learning how to manipulate a little, you can go and look at any part of the sun for any time frame you want. And you start seeing things going in and out of the sun. People are seeing these huge cubes outside of the sun, these spheres. And I gave those to my friend Jessica Jones in the chat here. Thank you. As a blind target, I gave her the weaponized portals of Earth. And the reason why I did that is because look, like Earth is like Swiss cheese. Okay, as far as portals, they're all over the place. And you've got you got all sorts of civilizations that are using them. Cats from inside the ground, inner Earth, are using them. That's what's happening here. It's like Swiss cheese on this planet. There's tons of portals. Then I started reading from some of that guy from MIT he was from, or University of Arizona. Anyway, they were talking about trying to actually weaponize portals to different sound frequencies. So now they're way past trying to prove that they exist. So I gave this to Jessica as a target, as a blind target, the cube and the spear, actually. One of the cubes. And, you know, one of the spears has been shown deflecting an earthbound solar prominence or earthbound solar flare. So people say we don't get any help. You sure about that? You know? Anyway, so I gave that to Jessica as a blind target, which was just the weaponized portals. And in her data, she's doing all this stuff about the sun. The sun. And that ties into what I've been saying about the sun for a very long time. And I found out recently, Dr. Blair said it also, Dr. Delbert Blair, is that the black holes of the sun, the black spots, are portals. They're portals. And, you know, when you're dealing with one of these civilizations that has mastered their own star and is using the fabric of space for power, whole nother thing going on. You know, so that means what she discovered is somebody's trying to weaponize our sun. So that gave me to later on giving her another blind target that was one of those cubes. You can all see those on Soho. And any cube you can see around the sun is going to be bigger than the size of Jupiter. All these things are. Okay. And what she started seeing on there was a type of AI. And not like what I would think automatically. I think the Borg, okay? But not cybernetic. She was describing total AI, like blocks of it or something like that. I can't remember now. But anyway, she's in there. She can tell you. But I mean, that was a little disconcerting. Okay, sometimes I get more than what I intend to bite off with these targets, and that's all inside of that's all on her YouTube channel and also on mine. I shared mine to my channel. If you go to the playlist, there's remote viewing interviews on there that her and I've done like 68 of them. So it's one of those on there. Just go check those out. In fact, while I'm talking about Jessica, let's bring something else up. Another type of time control technology. Excuse me. Sorry. I talked for an hour earlier. Nobody heard, so my voice is going. Anyway, another thing. I had given a blind target to Jessica Jones and Tanya Braddock of Mel's Hole, a Mel's Hole blind target. And the data that they both were getting, okay, very much was describing that Mel's hole functions like a Tipler cylinder. Technology that was described by Frank Tipler, okay, he wrote a book on it, Tipler cylinders. And what the Tipler cylinder is a longitude tube that's surrounded by rotating field, okay? And what that does is that creates actually closed time-like, contained closed-like, sorry, contained closed time-like curves, sorry. But the way that they're describing Mel's hole functioning is just like a Tipler cylinder, which explains some things. Why there's black light shooting out of it. Okay, these odd coins that have been found around it from all these different years in the future, years in the past, yada yada. Okay, that's I think dealing with a massive technology that whenever they made some type of a way, like Phil Snyder talks about that technology that can bore through solid stone and thing, going down into the inner Earth civilizations, and it's a Tipler cylinder also. So it's time active as well. And I think that's pretty good information. So I thank them, both of them, for doing that. Let's see. Another one is going to be the Casimir effect, and how the Casimir effect can be used for time travel, time science as well. And what the Casimir effect is actually two metal plates inside of a vacuum, and it starts creating 0 point energy. Some of them say it's negative energy, but it's 0 point energy creates, and it can be used for that. Now, when dealing with the Casimir effect, what I've always been most interested in is what our science now calls squeezed light. Squeezed light can be gotten inside of a vacuum, and also with changed magnetic fields that creates a different electrical charge, and they call this squeezed light. And I believe squeezed light is what a lot of these civilizations are using on board the ships and also outside. So that's just something I want to throw out there for you: squeezed light and actually Casimir effect, and how that can be used also for time travel as well. All right. Another one would be cosmic strings. And cosmic strings, I'm not as familiar with that, but my primitive knowledge, a real scientist will come on here and blow me out. Okay, this is not what I majored in, but I'm not stupid, and I'm trying to understand what happened to me. All right. Anyway, cosmic strings, my understanding, is the beginning of the universe. How it was in a frozen type of a formation, and there are these strings that go all through it that actually contain closed time-like curves themselves. So that's another one there. See, did I miss anything? Oh yes. Concerning like Dr. Mallet and what he's doing with circulating light beams. Okay, that takes us into something else I would advise everybody to look up. Everybody's familiar with SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And, you know, there's something else called OSETI, OSETI, optical search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And what that is they're looking for lasers and light beams and light frequencies coming from these other civilizations instead of radio signals that will scintillate long before they get here from other places. I mean, that's a scintillating signal there compared to these optical things they're looking for now, closed circulating light beams, which have also been seen around some crop circles as well. Food for thought on that, okay? See, it's got everything there. I think that's, sorry, I'm almost done, folks, and I'll go to the chat and talk to everybody. That's what happened last time. I got to going so hard and I didn't look over there and got completely lost. Something else I think worth mentioning also is quantum synthetic environments, QSEs, or like holodecks, okay, but more advanced, not just holograms, but holograms that contain also a type of a, particle synthesis that makes it to where it's actually tactile, touch, feeling heat, feeling cold, that type of a thing. So taking it a little bit step further, you know, and the first person I ever heard talk about any of that stuff, the Montauk Project, the quantum synthetic environments, it was Andrew Basago. He was the first one. It was a long time ago. He was the first one to talk about any of that stuff. And, you know, when I was talking to Tony Rodriguez, I think it was the second time we met. It was in Cocoa Beach, actually, the first time. But it was when we were leaving. We're waiting for our planes. We're eating Wendy's. And I was asking about his experiences. And then I asked him too, I said, how did he know in some of these things with the 21 and back, he wasn't being exposed to a quantum synthetic environment, a QSE? And, I can't remember what exactly he said, but he had a way of trying to verify that. So it's kind of interesting for people to look into that. Y'all know Tony, ask him. I'm sure he'll tell you. So anyway, just more food for thought there. Something else I'll bring up, I got dogged out on, people got mad at me, I got attacked. I put out a video that was called the Solway, about the Solway spaceman. Okay, and the Solway spaceman was that picture, that video, the picture of that little girl that's picking the daisies, and behind her is that spaceman with the visor and stuff. And her dad says how he never saw that thing there when he took the pictures. Okay, I said that I believe that is an example of time control technology in the private sector that we never hear about. There's very little transparency concerning that, except for when David Lewis Anderson came forward, and he was on Art Bell at first. He did a few interviews and people dogged him hard. Oh, he's just a guy that does websites. But he disappeared. And I'll tell you, all the people that are saying that, they didn't offer me anything further on time science than that man did, not even close. He was talking about heavy stuff. He's talking about Frank Tipler. Okay, he was talking about Kirk Odell. Those are people that go way far with the time science. Dr. Wong in Japan, also what India's doing with time to control technology. These are things we need to really be looking at, but it's not transparent. See what I'm saying? So he talked about these time generators, that they were on their 4th generation of time generators they're trying to get patent, he said. And it was very interesting how these things were working, how he described, and also some of my videos, I've got the illustrations he had put out of it. But thing about this is that it's supposed to be a magnetic device that creates a bubble, okay, a time bubble, and then a field, a bubble, and then they inject into it some type of a gaseous agent, and then over it they've got like these 20 antennae that shoot down these lasers into it, okay, to forward and retard the time field. And that's what he described what they're using. This thing was operated by a quantum computer. And interesting, I have people, since I've been on this platform, that come forward to me and will share information with me. One of this individual pops up every now and again, very brilliant, absolutely brilliant person. And they said what they do is they work on computer security systems for Fortune companies. And then they asked me, they said, Barry, have you ever seen a quantum computer? And I said, yeah. And automatically came to my mind was the D wave. If you're familiar with that, the D wave. But the D wave is in a case. And to be honest, to me, it kind of looks like the Whopper from War Games. Remember the Whopper? Joshua, the Whopper. Anyway, sorry, it kind of looks like that. But then they sent me some things, some other quantum computers they'd worked on or worked with. And one of them was this IBM one. And each one that they sent me, it looks completely different. It's like the way it looks, I swear to you, it looks like the rotor from the TARDIS on Doctor Who. The inside, the rotor, it looks like that kind of. And I found that very odd that a quantum computer would look like that. So anyway, that's just, again, food for thought, something to think on that. But when dealing with that kind of technology where the quantum computers may take us is fascinating. Anyway, back to the Solway spaceman, okay, behind that little girl. I think it's someone in the private sector right here around now that's experimenting with that technology. And what I think they were using was something to what NASA calls the Valkyrie, if I'm pronouncing that right, Valkyrie robot. You can look that up. Look up especially the latest editions of it. That thing looks quite similar to that thing standing behind that girl. Now, I got assaulted for that when people down me, to get all these horrible stuff on YouTube I just erased. I got attacked on that one, like I got attacked for, the witch knots. the Sasquatch and witch knots, or yeah, that. Oh man, boy, that went over horrible. I got blamed for that. I'm like, hey, I'm just saying what people are saying, what the researchers are saying. It's not me. I don't have no horses. I don't know, But since then, I've had some people come forward and say they do have horses on the edge of places that are kind of remote, and they've had things like that happening to the horses that they're wondering about. So it's not just all talk, Anyway, sorry, this isn't about witch knocks and that. But yeah, anyway, people got also upset about that a Solway spaceman. Just something to look up, okay? Now, I'm gonna reference my notes real quick to make sure I got everything. Oh, yeah, no. Okay, I said I call these guys the Temporal Time Commission. Okay. Oh, something else. Everybody talks about the Mandela effect, which is really time shifts. And these time shifts occur at time of high solar activity. Always check that out. Whatever it is, the mechanism that can be used to mess with timelines is connected to solar activity. I think that's noteworthy. Okay. Things like I had mentioned before, Hurricane Aaron that was hitting during 9/11. Well, no one could even remember that. Very few can remember Hurricane Aaron. But for whatever reason on 9/11, it was clear blue skies, when I think the day before and the day after air traffic was shut down there. Very odd things that should be looked at. I think that's most of it, folks. Okay, that's I've gotten everything. Oh, I left out faster than light speed for time travel. Not as that much into that one because I think it's a little harder. They can't prove tachyons yet. And when even dealing with Star Trek, it's they're getting like what, warp 9, warp 10. They're still dealing with our local neighborhood here in the Milky Way. They're not going out to other galaxies and things, Then when dealing with a lot of these time technologies, almost all of them can use exotic materials. I think with the exception of quantum tunneling might not be able to use exotic materials, but a lot of them use exotic materials. So when people want to talk about CERN, it's not just about the God particle or them creating this black hole. It's about in those collisions, what exotic particles are they getting that last only a nanosecond or less? Check that out. Those are things we need to be very, very aware of, and how much of those exotic materials can be used for time travel and time science. And we start dealing with that and dealing with Einstein's theories, okay? When you start dealing with his relativity theory of relativity, excuse me, I'm getting tired, but that is actually uses low power, okay? When dealing with special relativity, that's high amounts of power. So these things that can actually use general relativity for time travel and time science is very important, I think. I think that's it, folks. Okay, that's most of it anyway. Sure, half of you probably logged off by now. Oh, one thing I forgot: the great Project Looking Glass. To me, and that's supposed to be a time device. I can't remember if I think it was recovered from a ship or something. But when I look at how that thing is supposed to look like, to me, it looks like something that's actually harnessing time or time warp fields. Is what it looks like to me. Something that's actually generating time warp fields. So I think that's interesting when dealing with some of these things that may have come about. I do believe it's Andrew Basago again that brought up Project Looking Glass. Rat Food's the first person I see. 815. Hi, Bear. That's the best way to contact you regarding CRV. You can contact me on my email, barrylittleton13@gmail.com. Cool. ZV, I'm posting this to my group. Well, thank you for posting it to your group. Okay. Oh, good question here. Athena. Oh, it's starting to move fast. Why are some people affected by the Mandela effect and others aren't? Thank you. Okay. I believe there's two reasons for that. One is that some of us are just quote unquote time sensitives. Okay. Kind of like that. Too bad Dennis Carroll isn't in there, Jessica. There was one of my favorite Doctor Who episodes, Tom Baker era, was called Time Warriors. Warriors Gate. And there were these beings that were called the Feral, and they were like, of all things, a feline race. But what they did was they were able to manipulate these things they called the gateways, that they were time sensitive, they could just access. So they didn't need TARDISes to mess with the time fields and the timelines. So that's kind of something there. I think that's one reason some of us are time sensitives. And another reason I believe is this, okay, is that when we're around actually in the vicinity of some of this technology is being used in the private sector or whatever force it is doing that, it creates something that is like a deja vu effect also. We start experiencing deja vu. That's another, I think, version of the Mandela effect as well. So, and some people are just impervious to it, Athena. Same way you can go into a haunted house. Man, some houses I can't hardly be into. Hell, I walk up to that house, I can see it, I can feel it's watching me. You know what I mean? Let alone go into it. And it's obviously active. And you ask somebody like, hey, you got ghosts in here? One person, no. The other person, so it's like just something like that. I think sensitivity and awareness. And when sometimes the conversion of these timelines happens, some of us can pick it up, or we notice things like these Mandela effect things. Several people bring up with the Bernstein Bears CP3PO that had one silver, one gold, and the other movie didn't. That's actually can be explained. That's not really the Mandela. But I'll give you one. My sister is again much older than I. She's what, 60, 65. Anyway, way older. But she's very good at remembering all things from like childhood, especially. And when they were sitting around talking, and she said, I quit watching the Flintstones when Barney Rubble had that bomb and it blew up and his eyes were like dangling. She said, I hated that. And she said, then after that, he only had these slits for eyes. He never had real eyes anymore. And I remember a lot of the Flintstones. I don't remember that. I was saying one of my brothers too, he said, I don't remember that. Mom's priest, I don't remember that at all. And she goes, how can you remember that? It blew up and his eyes were dangling and then he didn't have eyes anymore. So I went and looked it up. And you can actually see sometimes he has eyes and sometimes he has little lines. Now, they gave a reason online for that, why that was. Hanna-Barbera or something. But the way my sister remembered it is very interesting. I think it's another example of one of those time skips, a time edit. Okay, anyway, hopefully that a very long way of answering your question, Athena. Sorry, you're probably logged off by now. Oh, thank you, no problem. Some people move timelines where others left behind. How is that done? How are people moving timelines themselves? Yeah, gotcha. Greetings from Washington. Joyce Hartman, Washington. Are anywhere by that Assetti Ranch out there? Okay, let's go into that. That's something I left out. Okay. With these jump rooms, they also utilize something that a type of orb technology. And when dealing with that Assetti Ranch and other places, and I broke the code on this long before, but no one listens to me, of course. And it kind of comes out of this book. There's something inside of Mount Adams that's called an OR station, is what this book calls it. If you have the Keys of Enoch, look up OR station, OR station. And what that does is a device, a docking place that allows communication between many different civilizations of all sorts of, different dimensional every other way. But what it also does is it scans our soul life memories. Okay, our life memories, this life. And then this is device out there. And then it scans, like, for example, let's say you haven't seen a Sasquatch. You don't believe in Sasquatch. It scans your energy field. Next thing you know, you're one of those people out. It dispatched an orb that can be actually microscopic, okay? And Rudy Shields when Rudy Shields and I would talk about the Makos, he said they were having computations that were putting Makos to the individual molecules of our body. Each molecule of our body has a Mako. Okay, so when you start dealing with that and these civilizations that can actually access that through the morphogenic field and do interstellar teleport through a way like that. When I talked to that whistleblower on my channel, Corey Good, I mentioned his name on Jessica, poor Jessica got attacked. Hey, she didn't say anything about it. It was me. And I didn't say I believe everything the guy says, but I met the cat. I talked to the cat one-on-one a whole lot. I have to judge some things on that. What energy did I get to the individual? And what are some of the things we talked about? Okay. That don't mean I believe it all, but some of it was noteworthy. and I got this Artron energy off of him. He's some sort of contactee. I have to accept that. Either he's been around beings that are emitting that type of a higher frequency, or he's been on one of these craft that is using one of these Makos as a traveling source, okay, like the TARDIS does. On Doctor Who, if you check out the TARDIS, it uses closed timeline curves. And more than that, it's like a Tipler cylinder too. It's turning. It's no coincidence. Anyway, just concerning that. Anyway, back to Mount Adams. Sorry, I didn't mean to go into the Corey thing so much because I don't really care. But I do found some of the things he was saying interesting. You know what I mean? It's not for me to judge everybody's experience. I'm sorry he messed this stuff up and got those people after him. Not my thing. Okay. Anyway, Mount Adams and this device, this ore station, you know, so therefore it does something that pushes your conscious forward. You know, one of those, probably that second or third interview I did with Jimmy Church on Fade to Black. I like Jimmy. He's got that voice. And we were talking about something. I started mentioning this ore station. And I said, I met him at a SETI in person. I said, when we were out there, didn't something happen to you that pushed your consciousness forward? He said, yes. Well, Barry, I didn't think we were going to talk about his SETI, but there was that orb out in the field, that spear out there bouncing around. You saw it. I said, yeah. You see, so it's something out there that happened to him too. So, I mean, it's just, you're in that type of environment out there. And my question starts being, how many of these ore stations still are in operation around the world from this type 1 civilization, type 2 civilization we used to be? And when certain people like me, some of you get around that station, around that mountain, it activates. I don't know if it's a bloodline thing, a soul line thing, probably both, but it activates. Okay. And then you start having these experiences. You know, sometimes it's somebody around me would have experiences. I was having so much time. I'm not a young man. I go out there in 2016 to speak at the first one of these conferences, and I got perceptually blasted. I've had a lot of experiences happen in my life. And at that point, I'm dealing with the NDE I'm dealing with, you know, quite putting that and incorporating that too. And I thought it was past experiences that just stopped my world. Out there, I had one. Many of them, the first time I was out there. So if you get a chance to go out there, just go. Obviously, I have major problems with a couple of people out there. Okay. One of them that comes here and goes there, comes in from there in Australia, can't stand the cat. All right. He's a devious, devilish bastard that will stab anybody in the back to be famous on seeing UFOs. And outside that, let's start making stuff up that we're seeing and make up contact experiences we're not having because we're out of material. We're not getting information like Fermi bubbles or what I'm telling you about. Be aware of these people. There's a lot of these demonic people in these communities that don't give a damn about each other. They do nothing but backcut each other. They're not taking this seriously. This is almost end times here. We've got to do something. Humanity, the stewardship of humanity having stewardship over this planet is almost expired. We're in danger. We're serious trouble here. And all y'all know in this audience here, they're listening to me, you're all very enlightened. You know damn well there's a whole host of other beings from other galaxies, other dimensions, all wanting to take over this place, the stewardship here, all wanting to incarnate here. Okay. So that's just something to keep in thought. Okay. So I'm not gonna spend time bashing some of these fools I've had to deal with here, but they're not good people. And I'll tell you something, I swear to God to you, look in my eyes. If I ever see them in person, I will tell them to their face. I don't give a damn. I don't owe them nothing. They're not gonna do anything to me. All right. I dare them to try. I think they're crap, and somebody needs to tell them they're full of crap. And I'm never gonna lay off. All right. I'm sorry, man. I don't need to use this platform to try to seduce women or use sexuality to get people to notice me. That's crap, man. That's crap. And I've seen a lot of these people doing that. I'm sorry. Certain people we could all point out right now that they're getting over right now by promoting sexuality with this whole new age thing. And it goes over hard. You know, hey, come over here. You can see some of my naked pictures over here. People are over there. Hey, I have a huge audience because I'm showing so much cleavage that it should almost get me banned. Sorry. Anyway, let's go back to talking about time travel. Let me mention John Teeter. That's an interesting one. Maybe what I'll throw on my YouTube channel too, make it public, but it was from Coast to Coast AM when Art Bell would open up the time travel lines, and he'd do that at over the Rockies mountain, I think it was, the wild card line. He would make time travelers on there. And there was some very interesting people that called in, especially the guy that said he's from the year 2037. He didn't say he was John Teeter. This is somebody different, but he called in 2 different times there. I've got that on private. Maybe I'll just release that. Anyway, sorry, I'll go back. I got distracted here. I miss Art. Brown Dwarf, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back, bro. You were waiting in there for me, and you're one of the people tried to tell me. I appreciate everybody. Gosh, I was so embarrassed. I told Jessica, I said, I'm not going back on there. She's like, man, you should just do it, man. A lot of people are in there the whole time. I said, that's some cool people there. Sorry, I got behind on this. Somebody from E. Does the Stephen Gibbs hyperdimensional resonator work for time traveler? No, I just brought that forward. No, it does interfere with the time field to a degree, okay? But it's like, for example, the most intense thing that happened to me was I've been at my place eating this sushi, and I really like unagi, okay? Some unagi and some albacore. And those are some of the more expensive pieces. I had 2 orders of each, and I had it in this thing, and I put it in the refrigerator. And I went down messing with this hyperdimensional resonator, trying to get a physical time jump, which had never happened, okay? And this time I go upstairs, and my sushi's gone. I was alone. There's nobody that could have eaten it. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody. It was just legitimately gone. And I definitely didn't just eat it and forgot about it. Are you kidding me? You don't forget something like that. You know, and I was hungry as hell. So that's one thing about the device I said that does work, but it's the caduceus coil inside of it, the spiral copper wire that is, that's spelled CADEUCS, I think. You can look that up and see how those are actually formed. And if not, go to my YouTube channel, check out Time Science. And the first 2 videos I ever did were about that HDR unit. You know, I regretted even doing them because the first one, people started attacking me and all this stuff. Don't this and that. And I said, you didn't even watch the second part where I took it apart and showed you and said it didn't work. You didn't even watch it. So anyway, the HDR unit, no, it doesn't work for what he's saying, but I think there's some things that could be changed in it to where it could do something. Now, on those other journals he sent, some of them had some advanced models in there. And even when I showed it to Bill was like, whoa, this is kind of interesting. You know, he's got way more knowledge than me on that. So hopefully that answers that. But put it to you like this. If anything more than $50, I wouldn't buy it. It's a cool radionics device. But what is that? The Wish company that used to be around, a lot of that stuff, they did a lot of that stuff too. And I think what they were doing, like the Wish machine and stuff like that, is more advanced than that thing there. So, okay. Rita Mills. Hey, what's happening, Rita? Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. Gary M. What's the purpose of reason for time shift Mandela effects? I'm someone causing these. You're just curious. You know, what's actually causing overall the time shifts, I can't say. But there's been things going forward, like, for example, there's a faction of Pleiadians and the others that maybe they're from Rigel, that supposedly gave Hitler the bell. And that bell was supposed to be a time device too, to my understanding. So there are people beings like that are trying to probably change the timeline, negatives, you know. And I think a lot of it too is people, these demonic people that are running this planet. They've got all sorts of stuff they're trying to do. And what's scary about them is they're not even non-physicals. They incarnate here just like you and I. Athena, I didn't like Corey's energy. He was at his SETI. Were you there too? Oh, you were there. You were there too. You know, I got to tell you, that was odd to me. That whole thing was odd because I didn't know what I was going to at that conference. You know, so much stuff is starting to happen around him already that I was pretty uncomfortable. And to be quite honest, there's people like him, the great Emery Smith, and all these people that, you know, I don't like the bureaucracy that surrounds them, because it makes it really hard for people like me and you. They're just normal, real contactees that haven't been through all this stuff, don't need to lie, don't need to make stuff up, okay? Not trying to sue people for my own personal, but okay, that's what I'm saying right now. Oh, here's the Here's the mother of the hybrids that I had encountered, okay? Hey, this is my being. This is my being. I'll sue you. Are you kidding me? I don't own that being. I don't own other people's experiences. So I can understand what you're saying. You know, for me, my experience with him was good. He was a little clinging on me. That's all right, man. You know, but we did a lot of talking, and just some of the things he said I found interesting. And I just like communicating with people and trying to find likeness and stuff like that, you know, as opposed to just attacking the guy. Because when he first, when I first met him, he tried to hug me, and I mentioned to other people, I don't hug people. Not really. Well, beautiful women, but not, not just kidding. But I did, so I get a read on him, you know. And I've met other people that are like really cool. Like, for example, Tony Rodriguez. I think Tony's really cool. No problem with Tony at all, you know. And I kind of thought that maybe his energy would be off. And I thought Matthew Mordian also. These cats don't like me because they seem to avoid me on social media. But I was wrong. They weren't, and they don't. You know what I mean? I want to be very cool with both of them. In fact, I did a show with Matthew Morning on Journey to Truth about when he comes up to me, he starts saying like he's a fan, kind of fan of yours, a fan of mine. What? He says, man, I just like what you talk about black extraterrestrials. Nobody really does, and I've had an encounter with one. And he told me this encounter that blew me away. And so Tyler had heard it, and we mentioned to Tyler, and Tyler started to do, we did a show about it on Journey to Truth. That was before the YouTube got pulled down. But it's really cool. I mean, as far as what Matthew had to say, and it was one of those, probably a black praying mantis hybrid, melanin dominant black praying mantis hybrid that have the triangles on their head. And what they do is actually they have a dance. They have a dance that they'll do in front of you for like, I don't know, man, maybe like 30 minutes, an hour or more. But what it really, and it's a way they have those extra joints as mantis hybrids that they have extra joint in their legs, extra joint, I think, in their here. And you know, we see things like the first arrival, not the later one, but the one with Charlie Sheen, the first arrival. They have those backwards legs. At the very end, the brother turned his legs backwards and ran off through the field. So that's kind of that praying mantis type of thing. So they have joints like that, and they do this dance that makes you want to try to emulate it. But we don't have the right movements to do it. All right. But in reality, it's their way of saying hello. It's an introduction. And it does something that chills our energy field. And it's my understanding. So anyway, Matthew, we talked about that and went into that. Sorry, let me go down here. I'm getting really little up. Sorry, I'm so far behind everybody. Girl in the Gong, what's happening? Great work you did in that regression too. I appreciate you saying that openly. We did a regression together, and she did really, really great work. And most people don't want to say when they do work with me, so thank you for saying that, because it's Earthbound Spirits. We didn't do that. But something I want to say about your deal, since you had mentioned it, is that I found it so interesting. Please don't remember that craft you're describing that sounds a lot like an ark, a type of an ark, with all those different beings in it, in those tubes. I've heard that before, especially from Linda Moulton Howe in Separate Realities, Volume 2. She talks a lot about that type of stuff. And there's other experiences that have had that too. You know, and again, that's a deal there. One of these people that's attracted this stuff, and you think, well, I might be a contactee, but I'm not sure, or I'm not. It's always you people that kind of gravitate towards me that always are the biggest experiencers. It's a trip. You kind of thought you were, but you have no doubt about it now, do you? So I appreciate you doing the work with me. That was really cool. Sean Davis, what's up, man? Still trying to figure out which side Sean Davis you are. Are you somebody I know from my hometown, the two Sean Davises from there, or are you another Sean Davis I not met? Either way, what's up? I like the name, obviously. Both Sean Davises I know are super cool cats. Oh, whoa, it's way down. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up, everybody. Art Bell was legendary. You know, when I met Linda Moulton Howe, that's somebody that I did want to meet. Okay, and when I came forward at first, I was like, man, I'm pretty real. If I stay real, one day I'll meet Linda Moulton Howe. I'd just like to talk to her. And I've followed her stuff since before she was even on Art Bell. She came to my state to look at crop mutilations probably around 1987, 88. A town probably about actually 50 miles from us had one of them. So I found out about it then. I was really young. Anyway, I'd ask her about Art Bell and stuff, what he was really like, and just kind of interesting, the stuff I've heard. I asked Jimmy that too. And Jimmy said, I never actually met him in person. I said, really? I think that's what he said. Yeah. That's interesting, that name, but he was the man. And my mom turned me on to him as, what was it? Oh gosh, 90, 91. And I listened all night. She said, I know you're up all night. And I was back then, it was Larry King and Sally, Jesse, Raphael on those late night shows on AM radio. And they were all right. I would listen. My mom tells me, I know you're up all night listening to those two and you don't like them. You'll like this guy. Listen to Art Bell guy. He talks about all that stuff you're into. And I started tuning in. And the first episode, I was hooked. First time I heard. I listened to him all the way to the end, pretty much. Anyway, so going forward. A lot of money grabbers. Rocky Mountain Skywatcher. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And something that I think kind of sucks about the conferences. I mean, I love the conferences. I'm so blessed to be invited to speak at any of them and meet all the people I've met. But one thing about them is just the venues that they're at, although they're very nice, I think they're so expensive on the promoters that it makes it so expensive tickets that it's hard for normal people to get there. You know what I mean? And those of us that don't have a bunch of money, it's not easy to spend all that money to go to those conferences. But those are people that really need to be there and need the answers too. So I'm hoping at some point the venues become more affordable for just normal people to come to that just don't have a lot of money. You know what I mean? I'm not saying everybody goes to conferences but they're able to afford it and it's not cheap. That's why I take those conferences so serious. Bernard Fox, what's up, brother? I've had my coffee mug removed from microwave while looking for it, found it across the room on a workbench. I set it for 1 minute, microwave stopped working for 32 seconds. That could be a time skip, definitely, but that almost sounds like also an A-port by a spirit. Sometimes they're A-port things like that moving across the room, the ones that are really strong. I don't know how they slip it through a little wormhole or what they do, but they'll move things. And a lot of people will be like, you'll be looking for your keys, and you've been looking everywhere, and then there it is right there on the damn kitchen table. And you just walked by there 5 times, and it was not there, period. That's that A-porting by spirits. But that also sounds like a time skip, what you're talking about too. So maybe a little both. Freaky Geek? No, I don't show cleavage. But somebody I used to work with quite a bit does. And they've got only following of about 90,000. So here on YouTube. And that's all right. We all do our own things, I was looking to like everybody else, so who cares? Anyway, Tony's energy is good and genuine. He has more. What I really like about Tony is he's trying to get evidence, and he's gotten some of it that actually supports his testimony. And that's a lot more than most people have done. Desiree Foley is like that too. She's got some tests she had run on herself and other stuff she's doing to really prove what she's been through and what happened. And that's cool because let's face it, as contactees or experiencers, most of us can't prove it. I can't prove nothing. That's why I kind of really like, science. Science at least gives me a foundation. And when I went from my acid rain experience after that, I was like, man, that's the one that I could prove stuff was happening to, at least to my own consciousness. I knew this stuff crossed over in my day life. I wasn't just not sleeping at night. It started affecting me during the day. I'm all tired and wiped out. And that's why. But, I thought then I was okay. Now that I know it's definitely real, it's physical, I'm going to get me something, like grab me a sonic screwdriver or something, but that didn't work like that. It's so sick on board there that I couldn't grab anything. And number 2 is I'm not really a thief. And the ship knows some of these ships are organic beings. Okay. And these organic beings, and some of them are space organisms. So that means that they could be millions of years old for all we know, thousands and thousands of years old. And some of them know us from our soul life memories. They have access to the race memory, to the soul life memory. the way animals here on Earth have access to the race memory to a degree. I think Sasquatch does too, but I think this goes on a soul level. So you might have been on that craft before in a different body of a different race, but it recognizes you. It recognizes your soul configuration, and it knows. You know, I used to wonder why I'm able to walk around these craft and I'm not being escorted. There are others with me in my mind, everything, but no one's really making me do anything, escorting me anywhere. Of course, I'm so sick about ready to fall out from this temporal aphasia that I'm not much of a threat to anybody. You know what I mean? Anyway. Cleavage keeps coming up. That's funny. Okay. I better keep my mouth shut for I start getting myself in a whole bunch of trouble, man. Anyway. Moonwalking by Dance Michael Jackson. Yeah, I do believe didn't oh god, what's the brother's name? Didn't Step and Fetch It moonwalk? I think Step and Fetch It would moonwalk too. Rita Mills, Barry, do you think regression can ultimately help me find out what it is I'm supposed to be doing here? Oh, absolutely. Because you know why? When you absolutely, like I said, real regression hypnosis is really just relaxation. And although the body might be like that about a flopper, the mind and the consciousness is on point. You know what I mean? And we have access to our superconscious and subconscious um, minds, consciousness. Sorry, I like superconscious opposed to divine, over self, higher self. All these different words. I like superconscious. I think that's more accurate. Anyway, we have total access to that and to the subconscious, but the superconscious, okay, has access to all your soul life memories since creation, everything you've experienced as a soul, as an immortal soul, and nothing can be hidden from it. And that's what I've been telling people a lot too. When you start really tapping into your superconscious, you'll find out quickly a lot of these things that are happening to people, someone has agreed to a degree. And the superconscious cannot be forced to do anything. And I'll tell you something else. I know from fact, it cannot be trapped either. The superconscious cannot be trapped. The divine overself cannot. It's still one with God in creation, one with perfection. But the other parts of us, I can't make that claim. But the superconscious, the overself, I do. Okay. But anyway, sorry. During the regression, Rita, you have access to that and access to your superconscious. It'll tell you everything. And in reality, it's like you're telling yourself a story, your own story. It's pretty cool like that. Gary M., how do you know if you've ever been an abductee? Just curious. You know, there's several different ways. One would be, have you ever had missing time, even if it's short? Have you ever had anything in your room? Have you ever had dreams about extraterrestrials? And when I say that, especially because it's always the people that come up to me. It's always usually the conferences. I haven't had experiences like yours. I'm not a contactee or anything. Like, sorry, I'll just throw her name out there. No, I probably, yeah, well, I can. Holly Marie. She's from Massetti. We had done a session and I did a video about it. I just didn't name her in the video. And she always said, and if anybody ever looked like a hybrid, if I've seen one, it's Holly Marie. She looks like kind of that, reminds her like she could be a hybrid of one of those things from Star Wars, the later Star Wars with the long necks, the kind of pale things. She reminds me of them. Okay. But when I talked to her, I said, you know, you a contactee? No, nothing like that ever happened to me. What? I was feeling tons of that energy coming off of her. You know what I mean? And she looks like a hybrid. So other things come out when you start tapping into the superconscious and the subconscious. You find other things out. Anyway, oh, sorry, that's another way, Gary M. Marks, have you ever woke up with marks or things like that? Okay, another one would be a big one, especially before, Gary, before the age of the drones and all these drones everywhere and all that stuff. Had you ever seen a UFO? And especially, did you see a UFO like maybe you're with a group of people and only you can see it, or maybe you and one other person? And it's right there. Excuse me, it's right there. And other people are going, Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Like those little kids used to tell us we're the juvenile offenders used to tell us when you drive and try to get to their house. It's right there. It's right there. Turn right there. Right there. There's 5 different turns. Which one, man? You know, it's so anyway, so that's one thing like that. You know, it's just kind of be aware of that. There it is right there. But it's people that saw that. And if you've seen a UFO and you couldn't explain it, you maybe even just missed it, you know, looked at it for a few seconds. So much information can be transmitted on the superconscious level, on the subconscious level, on a different, faster vibration, a faster frequency that you may have had a total experience and you just can't access it till you actually get into theta, sometimes delta for some of us. So there's just a few ways to be aware of it there, you know. And do you just feel a general attraction to contactees, to extraterrestrials, to aliens, to science fiction? Linda Moulton Howe is great. I'm glad to hear you say that. You know, I like her too. She takes a lot of people slam her down. And, you know, I personally used to get a little irritated that she's always the tall whites, the tall whites, the tall whites, and never any talk of any melanin dominant um, extraterrestrials, which do exist. And, you know, our friend Zach Jefferson wrote her an email and asked her about that. And she wrote back with fairly short answer to him. He asked her how come she never talked about any melanin dominant extraterrestrial. She said she'd never heard of any, and never had any of those experiences reported to her. I can't say that's not true. But by the same token, I asked Ray, I was like, man, how come you're not talking about Ray Hernandez, black extraterrestrials? He said he didn't hear it, he never heard it either, and didn't have any of the research they had done. It didn't come up. Okay, you know, but I can't say that's a lie. I don't know, you know, but for reasons like that, it had the individual that through one of the melanin dominant conferences I've spoke at, contactee conferences, and he was there too, the one in Orlando. They hated him for that reasons and those reasons. You know what I mean? I don't think that's fully fair. You can't just say the man's a racist because of that. He might be telling you what he experienced. You know, he's not been racist towards me. I have no problem with him. He's just a kind of loud Cuban guy, you know. Anyway, but back to Linda. Concerning her though, she did tell me we had lunch and stuff. She said, "Oh, I think we have a lot of work to do." And then suddenly she veered off when I tried to contact her a couple of times. She was very wishy-washy, it seemed like to me, and then or no response at all. And I think that could honestly, I could be wrong, but I think it might be because I talk about black extraterrestrials, because I talk about melanin dominancy. You know, maybe that, and she doesn't like that. Who knows? I can't say that for sure. Sorry, I'm just reading. I'm trying to read and see anything that asked me. I'm up to 8:45, so I'm almost there, folks. If you're missing time, it's good to get a regression, definitely. And just because you're missing time doesn't mean it was mean that that was a horrible abduction and that you had your mind wiped and erased and screen memories. It doesn't always mean that. It could mean like what it meant for me, which is the vibration is so different. The frequency, especially on board one of those craft around those beings, their frequency and the vibration is so different that it makes the retention of memory hard for us. You know, especially the further you away from the event horizon. And, you know, then there's that other factor too. And I mentioned this before, that when you're in the biofield of some of these non-humans, what's really like to be in the presence of a non-human, no BS, for real. Some of them have this biofield that almost blisses you out, causes a Shakti pat. I mentioned that before, like you get blissed out. But then when you're like not face to face with them, you can't remember them. It's like foggy. It's like splinted. You know you've just been in. Sorry, it's like split. Sorry, shattered. Better word. Anyway, it's you know, and it's like you know you were just interacting with someone or something, And it might have been positive. You can feel it, but you can't get a fully remember. You know what I mean? And that, I think, on Doctor Who, the newer Doctor Who's, they had some creatures called the Silence, and they kind of played up that a little bit, so somebody knows something there. And I spent a great deal of time wondering, like, geez, is that a part of their biofield because it's evolved over time, or is it a defense mechanism that they perfected, or both? I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's a difference in vibrations and frequency. I do know that. And besides that, when we experience anything that's a different frequency or vibration, or a different place of the assemblage point that I mentioned before, that's on souls, where all the filaments of the universe come through our one, not just our luminous cocoon, but through the assemblage point, and that assembles the world that we deal with. Okay, even just a small movement along the band. The shirt I got is like kind of expansive. Okay, this is like the band of man. This white strip is like the band of man, and the assemblage point normally hangs around in here. It doesn't move much outside of that. But if it moves just even a anything at all, different universal filaments start coming through, and you assemble a different world. But as long as it stays on the band of man, it's going to be a world somewhat similar to this one, at least. Again, food for thought. All right. Tony's testimony helped me a lot from my own experiences. Very cool. He sent me a couple of clients, one in particular that very interesting. Another one is, no matter how many of these regressions I do, whether they're past life, extraterrestrial, earthbound, doesn't matter. And man, I feel brand new every time. I'm blown away, flabbergasted almost all the time, because they're all different, and it makes you feel very anew each time, you know? Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you. My pleasure to help anybody. You know, I always said if I could help just one person coming forward, it'd be worth it. Because when I did that first interview with Bill and that demon, I had wanted to get up and leave because it kind of tricked me into doing it, and it was kind of a setup. And then I had very reasons what my mother told me before she died. My brother's promoted. I went ahead and just did it, And I was like, man, if it can even help one person, it's worth it. And to be quite honest, I did that first interview, and I was pretty sure that was my homage, and I'd done everything that Creator probably wanted from me, and that should be enough. I already went through all those brain injuries. It's bad enough to tell people, okay, great, I've been seeing extraterrestrials, and that's 30 years, 35 years before I had brain injuries. Gee, great. You know what I mean? That could go over real great. So I didn't really want anybody to know, but I thought by stepping forward for that one interview, I would be all right. Besides that, I was super nervous. And secondly, this cat, man, he's an Aussie, and I'm sorry, he's one from one of the lower levels. I think you can't understand crap that cat's saying. You can't understand him. So I thought nobody would even listen. You know what I mean? But in return, actually people did listen. It kind of went a little viral, and people wanted me back on there, and I got all this, it just kept going and going. So the fact it's helped anybody is a blessing, because like I said, I can't prove the stuff. I can just tell you what I've experienced. So thank you for that. David Bowie, Labyrinth, right? Okay. Golden Souls Network. As far as I know, anybody can do it. Some of these, here, I've mentioned before. Oh boy, of course, because I'm trying to get it, I won't be able to find it. This will wind up being like last time I hauled this stuff over there all over the floor. It looks like a madman. This gyrospheric engine, okay, that had the hexagons down here in a circle that looked actually a lot like a big piece of C60, kind of similar to that. And it's got these rings around it that are moving, that made me really trip out when I saw Contact the first time with Jodie Foster, several years after I had experienced this, many years after this. Okay, this light, it's golden, but really it was a much darker light than even this. It was a darker golden, almost like the consistency, not quite of a honey, but it was dark like that. And they called it AGLE. They called it the living light, and they're putting this in my head. The living light, and then AGLE, angelic golden liquid energy. It's some way they're polarized orgone energy and polarizing the light to a living light. And this again here was these are decks, And this deck right here, when I could see someone touching, like they're transparent looking, to like kind of transparent, but they're trying to touch that light on the edge of this rim right here, okay? And I want to go up there and see, but before I can really start moving up there, it's like zoom. Suddenly I'm sucked up there and I'm standing there, really about to throw up then. But there are these other people standing there, like about, was it 7 people standing there, I think, maybe 8. And they're all transparent and they're waiting to touch the living light. And that's these beings that put in my head, they're touching the living light, healing. And which implies they're getting healed in their dream body, healed in their energy body. But that's why they're there in the energy bodies, because they're not there physically like I am about to puke. Okay. And one of the people I saw up here was Susan Manwich. You people that know Susan, I can say that openly now since my friend Alexis Brooks blasted that on her show about a year ago, which is cool. It's cool. I'm glad she talked about it. Another one would be Bill Spicer that I did that first interview with. Bill Spicer was somebody that worked with my father. He's a pilot, an engineer, and also a contactee. And he wanted to go in there and talk to my father before my father retired about UFOs. My dad was way past retirement. He was 85 or older. And he didn't care about that, man. About 80. He didn't care about that. He talked to my son. He's crazy like you. And this guy started calling me all the time. And he's a genius, though. He's absolutely brilliant, especially with quantum physics. So we would talk about that a lot. But then I started trying to play stupid about contactee stuff. And, man, he just wouldn't go away. He wasn't buying it. He kept calling all the time. And then I had to go take my father something one day down to the office, and Bill's office is right next to him. And he runs out to meet me and stuff. And when I see this gentleman, my God, he's one of the people I saw in this craft. But that for me was when I was 17 years old. It's the first experience I had again when they started again. They quit from like when I was about almost 13 to about 16. They kind of stopped. So I thought. They just weren't the way they were before. And then they started ramping up again. He's one of the people I saw touching that living light. So what's that mean? I had to accept that first. And when he saw this image, what he really tripped out on is something Jessica Jones took an interest in. It's another one of these rooms with the black boxes. Okay. And this black box here, they were calling it an inertial dampener. This life energy is going, this polarized life energy is going into the box, and then it's storing it, as we know cubes can do that. And then it's actually disseminating it around the ship, or in the case of something like this, that anti-gravity modification field that you see right here, starting something like that. Barry, have you ever met any other abductees during your experiences? I just described one. And then the other one would be, okay, something I've talked about my experiences that were physical, okay? Because to me, they're much more tangible because I could touch things. And I was one of those kids that I mentioned before in a field trip. If we were in elementary school, you wouldn't want to go on a field trip with me. I was one of those kids. What's that? What's that? What's that? What's this? Especially if it was science stuff. And then I would sneak away from the group, run away from the group and go look at stuff I wanted to see and get in big trouble. So, I mean, I'm one of those type of people. But during an experience I don't talk about because it was non-physical, it's like moving around without a bite, that dream type of stuff. There was another ship I was on board, and it had these corridors. And it must have been a saucer because the corridors seemed to be somewhat circular-like. But there are these rooms that were like part of the wall, the inner side, but you couldn't hardly see it. They were like part of the wall. They're like camouflage. But you walk by it, it would just open. Okay. I go into one of these rooms, sucked into it kind of, and I see these beds. There's several beds there, I think 4. And these beds have people laying on them, but they're transparent. And above them and it's weird because these devices, I don't see anybody holding them. These devices above them that look like, in fact, they look similar to, I've shown you these Andromedas that were holding these devices. They didn't look quite like that. They looked more like rods, but they looked like they had crystals on the end of them. Okay. Similar to that, but they were different. They look kind of a little bit more like a sonic screwdriver or something like that. All right, at least in terms of the size, so they're really, really thin. The things they had, but these things, but nobody was holding them. But on the end of them is this light coming out. It looks like crystal, a little smaller than that, but there's this light coming out that to me looks very much like spider webs or silk. Okay, and it's some sort of a healing going on with these individuals. But again, those are other contactees, but they just were non-physical. They were transparent. They're in the energy body, dream body. But I've talked a lot about how this bilocation happens during the contact experience itself. And I had mentioned to you before this being how when she's leaning over this device thing and she's putting in my mind, you have to fix this thing. You have to help. You have to fix this. And I'm like, fix this? I'm looking at this, looking at her, freaking out, looking around. I've never seen anything like this in my life. This is more advanced than anything I've ever seen. And she's putting in my mind, it's not advanced, it's ancient. It's ancient, you made it, and you have to help fix it. It could hurt somebody. Hurt somebody? What? And at that point, she looks up, okay? And it's like suddenly I was floating. This was a physical experience, like I was floating across this room, and suddenly I was smashing up against that completely melanated eye, okay? Like my nose was right against it. And she is completely in my head. Intense telethought, too intense. And I was also about to pass out because I'm getting so sick from this temporal aphasia. I'm about to throw up and pass out. The encounter's about over anyway, okay? And what she did actually was and then all of a sudden I'm back across the room. She bilocated me through the optical nerves. She bilocated my energy dream body across that room. Now, I'm sorry, I'm putting this down right now because y'all show me one human that could do that. It's got that type of conscious capability. We don't know what we're dealing with some of these beings. Anyway, answer that Maestro. Hope I'm saying that right. Barry's a Doctor Who. Frank, Frigga, thank you. Now they finally made one of the new doctors is finally a black man. I'm down. You know what I mean? I always said that. I said, why don't they regenerate into black people? But now we got the not the war doctor, the fugitive doctor, that lady. She was one too, so I'm cool. Right on. Thank you. I'm down with that. Oh. Rita Mills, I feel like my mom's mom in a previous incarnation because I've always felt like I had to protect her even when I was a child. So check this out, Rita Mills. By the way, I like that name because every time I say it, it reminds me of, isn't that Ghost? On Ghost, Whoopi Goldberg was in the bank trying to get that money out. And she's like, Rita Mills. Oh, my name's Rita Mills. She was signing it. I'm signing it right here. Trying to get that $1 million check, whatever it was. I could be wrong, but I swear she said her name was Rita Mills. Anyway, sorry, I'll get too late. I get off here soon. I'll get goofy and stuff. Need to get some dinner and get some beverages, obviously, dehydrating. It's concerning that, Rita. I've talked before about doing these past life regressions that, especially ones that are live between lives, there is this place that the soul goes to, the spirit goes to, that I call the place of translation and reconfiguration. It can be an office. It's oftentimes it's an office or a library, a garage, a nature spot, pond, several different things. But it's just sometimes it's not even on Earth. But it's this spot that is this translation and reconfiguration. What happens is there's like the information gets translated, what the soul had did. It's really their life choices and the intent behind them. They start experiencing that. It's something that's similar to what's called a panoramic life review, something I did experience when I died too. Okay. But anyway, when they get done with that and going through all that process and the reconfiguration is done, that's put into their soul matrix thing, okay, incorporated in, then they always start describing in this place of translation and reconfiguration, other souls over there. And normally they don't notice them until after they're done with their reconfiguration. There's other souls over there. And Rita, I've gotten all sorts of different numbers, okay? 16, 12, 9, 7, 4, all sorts of different numbers. But always these souls, they say, I have agreements with these souls. And I want to emphasize, I get the word agreements. I do not get the word soul contract. And again, as many other things, I've actually, running over all this stuff. I've actually asked. I ask, do you mean contract? Hey, no, it's not a contract. And the one regression I had, the person did say this. I have soul contracts with them, and we incarnate other lives together. We help each other. I asked. I said, "Is contract the right word?" I remember they kind of looking. No, not really, because it's not forced. I said, agreement. Yes, it's an agreement because we don't have to do this. But then I'll take the people through several lifetimes, and I'll have them identify, including the present one here. They'll identify several of these souls as different people in their different incarnations. So Rita Mills, when you say that your mom's mom, previous incarnation, she's probably one of those souls. Again, don't know that for sure, but good food for thought. Okay. And I can only talk about what I have actually experienced. You get your own talk show, be way better than Dr. Phil. Thanks, Golden Souls Network. Okay, to keep a little humor in it. Hey, did you see the lady that was saying he was a clone, and she's walking around looking at the back of his head, looking at all the stuff with the wrinkles and stuff, and he goes, "Lady, if I was gonna be a clone and have a fake face, it wouldn't be this one." It was kind of funny, man. It was kind of funny, yeah. Bernard Fox, I saw a UFO flying my drone. Have a video of it. Did it close to your drone, or did it avoid it, or what happened there? That's interesting. Use the 3D glasses stable together. Okay, let me just say, I haven't seen the ones, I can't find them anymore, but I used to have a bunch of those. The ones that had like the one blue, one red, those 3D glasses. When I was a kid, I tried to put a bunch of those together and see stuff, and it didn't work for me. I could see stuff without them, but it didn't really do anything. I thought it would make me see stuff. I put a bunch of them together and clipped them together, but maybe that's the old ones that are different, that have the one red, the one blue. That's like the original ones or something, but that's when I tried that. So doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just didn't work for me. But I think that's interesting when dealing with what Jessica and everybody did. Oh gosh, I can't see the word, folks. Dyson goggles. That's an interesting deal all the way around. In fact, I've had a client during a regression that spoke somewhat like Arkeem Ra does. They got taken out of the tag program, the gifted program. And, one of the things they were doing, they were one of the ones that was selected to go to the Air Force Base. But then we get through the screen memory. They're giving them a screen memory of a gum machine, or like a candy jar where you have to count the numbers in there and you get it, or something like that. But that was really just a screen memory. And one of the things they were doing where they were testing out these different equipment on these kids. And one of them was a type of goggles that they described that were similar to Dysonian, but different. They described these goggles as coming down kind of long, and that it projected a perfect quantum environment, alien environment. And they said it was so real. So I think they were using quantum or particle synthesis also, because they said it was so real that they could almost touch stuff, it seemed like. And, that takes me back to the virtual reality scenario, virtual reality technology we had back in, was that around 90 or so? You could go to the mall where I live, and they had the one you sit in the thing and it moves you back and forth. You got that was almost like a helmet, man, with the glasses on it. But it's similar to technology to that. And how far is, virtual reality scenario technology, I've always been very interested in, because in one of my experiences, which would be, oh Lord, I was exposed to this, what they had called a synaptic helmet. And this was a ship that kind of materialized around us. So it's one of those cars one of those ships that's a full conscious craft that can actually manifest into almost 3D. And the first room I went into was this thing came down off the ceiling. Organic ceiling, this thing came down, and it too big for my head. All right, it's supposed to be me. But I'm like, what is it? They're telling me it's a synaptic helmet, what they're saying. They're saying it's to give me a frame of reference for the experience. Or otherwise I wouldn't have none. I guess I couldn't interpret the information maybe. But then they start warning me, saying that this technology has been basically perverted by lower level civilizations to deceive people. And the first time I started hearing, I read, what's that, Masquerading Angels by Carla Turner. It freaked me out because she was talking about being deceived by virtual reality technology. And she like died. Her husband too, they got murdered or something. So I was really tripped out. And I've said before, when people say, I went really through my experiences to make sure I've not been involved in something like that and dealing with screen memories and all those types of things, because I grew up in the air capital of the world. People laugh when I say, well, if they know the name of it, but the air capital of the world is where I grew up. And not just at Beechcraft, Learcraft, Spirit, Boeing, all those places came out of my town, okay? And also on the edge of our town, the east side, there's a huge Air Force base. It's huge, okay? Just right on the edge of town there. So it's things like that I pay close attention to. When I'm missing time, did Big Brother get me? The G word, don't use that word. The G word, did they get me? Were they doing this to me? Okay, so I went through other screen memory, trying to do all this stuff, trying to figure out and connect that. That's not what happened to me. It is what it is. And believe me, with the missing time stuff, I remember the person that was with me during this, we're talking about this stuff and all the information we got right after this deal. I'm trying to get back to town. I'm flying, man. About 15 miles outside of town to get back to town. So trying to get a recorder or something to write the stuff down on. And by the time, just before getting to town, I'm looking at them, they're looking at me going, what the hell just happened? And it's fading by the minute. And so immediately you start thinking, oh my God, they wiped our mind. Did I wipe our minds? Is that what's going on? And that isn't what happened. It's a change in the frequency. It makes the retention of memory hard. Just like, and then you experience also in a dream type of fashion. You may not be dreaming, but when we experience other worlds, other perceptions, it comes in like dreamlike. Other vibration comes in dreamlike. We're beings of perception, beings that respond to perceptual stimuli. Period. Anyway, so okay, I'm doing a little bit more of this. I'll probably get out of here, folks. I know it's last time I went 3 hours. I didn't mean for it to be that long by any stretch. But so many of you were so kind to stay on here after what happened earlier. I really thank you, and thank you for following me. Thank you for being a part of my live cast, and also for just hanging out on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel has been shadow banned 2-3 times. All this stuff went down, but most information is still there when you go to the playlist. Thank you all for encouraging me to go forward. Thank you for the people on Patreon. It's the only way I could keep affording to do those, because I was definitely getting charged for them. I think I've only heard of Black ETs from Barry and Preston Dennett. Rat Food. Right on. Man, I got to tell you, Rat Food, Preston is somebody, I've communicated with him once. I wanted to try to do some work with him, but I don't think he was interested. But it might have been on account that we talked for like 2 hours, and I basically talked and he just listened. But I looked up the guy so much because he wrote that book. I have a copy of it in here. UFO Healings. Here it is. UFO Healings. He wrote that book, and I really like this one too. Schoolyard Encounters. He's got like 70-some cases in here that are similar to the Zimbabwe children aerial school that had Jessica Jones. They were blind target on that one too. Okay, and this one, UFO Healings. And this is the one, Rat Food, that really helped me. I mean, because I was really kind of depressed because all my encounters were positive and I couldn't find anybody talking about that. Everything was grays, anal probes, reptilians, You know, I mean, basically, or maybe just Pleiadians. I mean, but it was very, very, everything was very, very skewed, it seemed like. And I got that book, I ordered it, and I got that, and I read that, and it was just, it changed my life in terms of stuff I had seen, you know, stuff I had experienced, positive contact. He's the only one who was talking about that at that point. But that gentleman has put out, my Lord, what, like 40, 50 books? He's heavy. I think he's great. That's how I wound up getting all my work was done by Casara Dennett, or Christine Dennett, which is Casara, which is his sister-in-law. And you know, when I looked through that book, UFO Healings, I was like, one day I'm gonna write a book, and I want that to be my artist, whoever that is. And that's what happened, though, 20 some years later. My Athena, my daughter, says she was abducted at 10 years old and had a scar on her knee. Was it triangular shape? Was it triangular shape? Maybe just spots, but did it go into a triangle? That's some sort of device they use that lets people know they've been contacted in some sort of, and also does something else, but I don't think it's, they say it's not as harmful as like the stuff Betty Hill went through and those types. I recently had somebody that was describing being scraped inside for eggs. So it's not that type of device, I don't think. But I'd be interested to know if it was triangular. Brown Dwarf, Melanin ETs, I'm super interested in. Thank you, brother. You probably been on my channel anyway, but please check out the Melanin and Black Science playlist. I've got several videos on there that are directly about Black extraterrestrials and melanin dominant extraterrestrials. Things like going into Triangulum Galaxy. You know, we hear so much about Andromeda. We hear so much about the Milky Way, but we don't hear much about the Triangulum Galaxy at all. And I've done a video about that, but that's where a lot of your real giant melanin dominant beings came from, the 25 feet or taller, like things they talk about in the Vedas. You know, so that's you know, something to really look into there. And when dealing with the beings of that size, I mentioned it before, that was a type 2 civilization here, and they had these, they were huge, and they come from somewhere where their blood has got more of this like gold ornaments. Oh Lord, no, but I didn't say that right. Ormus. Anyway, more of this like pure gold in their body, because they're, whatever sphere they're from have much more gold on it already. So they weren't here doing what Zachariah and Sitchin said, making Homo sapiens sapiens so that they can mine gold. You've got, you know, gold is not that rare out there when you start dealing with these exoplanets. But when these beings were here and had these cities here, they also had waste factories too, you know, sanitation factories. And what happened there is some of this stuff that they had, their byproducts, waste products, over years have turned into certain types of precious mineral deposits. Heard that several times. Comedic also, comedic information and knowledge also. So this is something we need to think about. See, but we don't hear about that. We hear things about the giants that were maybe some of the stone mountains we see and things like that. There were giants or stuff like that, and that may be too. It's been a lot of stuff that went on here, but I'm specifically talking about the very tall, big, melanin dominant beings that you see illustrated in Egypt and other places. And you see, sometimes you see that everybody thinks, oh, it must be Orion. We see those triangles. It must be Orion. It could be Triangulum also, and that's not being incorporated. It's just kind of washed aside. But something needs to be included. Anyway, so that's just one thing. So please check out that playlist, Roundorf. There's all sorts of stuff on there concerning melanin and extraterrestrials and all that, including that video with the whistleblower. But it was a good one. I thought it was fun. We're supposed to make a part 2 of that, and then they were too tired, and the other cat was just out of it. The other cat, he didn't help on that thing at all. He just recorded it. But he gave nothing to that conversation at all. But Corey said, oh, I forgot a few things, so let's do one tomorrow. And then the next day came, and his sinuses were bothering him. He didn't do it. Oh, sweet. But anyway, it is what it is. There was never a part 2 to that video, but the first one's got some cool stuff on there. Yeah, Brown Dwarf, the demographics, it sucks. You know, I can't say though, because at first, when the first three conferences I went to outside the melanin dominant ones, man, there were very few black people there. Very few, if none, if I was not the only one. You know what I mean? But since then, and since even talking, I'm seeing things change. You go to these conferences now, there's a few brothers there, a few black people, you know, are even different races altogether. So it's starting to change a little bit. And I think that's part of the enlightenment going on and just awareness, you know. So that's why I don't always harp on melanin and just go all the time so hard into it. But I try to you got to bring attention to it because we're going to be a type 1 civilization. The demographics have to change. It has to be more like what you saw on the bridge of the original Enterprise. You had somebody black, you had somebody Asian, you had a Russian, you had a Scottish, you had a little bit of everything on there. And if you look at Star Trek, the animated series that was actually the original crew did that like back in the late 70s. They had beings on the bridge that they couldn't illustrate for the series, like Commander or Lieutenant Erickson. He's a different type of being altogether. Or the feline being. They had a feline being on the bridge too that would be, I think, that took over for when Chekhov wasn't at helm. Okay. So anyway, just food for thought on that again. Sorry, I don't want to get too. Wow. Very interesting. Eliza Wade. Well, that's a beautiful name. Kind of reminds me of my friend, my cousin, Alicia. Um, that's that. Maybe it's your name too. Sorry, I'm not so good with names or pronunciations all the time. That's very interesting, considering all expressions created by God should be acknowledged. I'm happy to find your channel, Barry. Well, welcome to the channel. And I agree definitely, and I think it is universally. I think we have everything, definitely expressed, as well as almost every type of entity or being, insectoid, animal on Earth, I think is represented somewhere in the cosmos, in the universe. You know, like for example, when I was younger, I got this information about these turtles, these huge a planet that has these. It's a water world, but it's got these huge type of tortoises on there. I think like twice as or 2 or 3 times as big as the ones we have here. If the ones from here aren't connected, I don't know, but they're completely sentient and they don't have a lot of technology. They swim in that water. They're like the way turtles live here, but they're completely on a collective consciousness and super, super advanced. I just don't think they really care to advance or to explore outside of their biosphere. That's not what they're about. So, there's little things like that that's food for thought. Or we've got do I have that book in here? Oh, what do you know? Return to the Bird Tribes by Ken Carey. I think he's dead too. But he also wrote the Millennium Chronicles, was it called? The Millennium something. Good books. This one here is especially good. It talks about the ancient bird tribes that were once here. They're stationed to return. A lot of connection to Native American knowledge there. Angie or Ange. I think I probably butchered everybody's name in the chat. I apologize. Except for Amy. That's an easy one. Amy, I got you. Done. Angie, 857. Barry, do a lot of missing time scenarios happening while people are in a vehicle? Yes. Heard it several times. An example I would give for that. Oh, boy, things said this wasn't going to happen, but yet I've completely done it again somehow. At the proverbial professor. Concerning vehicle and what she's asking. Okay, I think definitely yes. And one reason I would say that in this situation, this experience here, oh boy. It's the one that I call the anti-gravity room. I may have showed it last live feed. And it's what this was the first room that I actually went into on this craft, all right? And it's the morphing UFO It was the first room in there, and it. Well, I went through every one. I'm sorry, I cannot find it, Ange. It's well, it's anyway. I'm sorry. It was an anti-gravity room, is what I called it, or gravity modification room. But the thing is, this room was actually huge. All right, and the illustration I have doesn't really give it justice for how big it actually was. But it was big enough to definitely put a car in there. If they're going to actually dematerialize somebody, not just while they're in the car could have remained in that. It looked like almost a shuttle bay of a type. And I also believe that that is the belly of the craft. And also what it does in there is you have several different extraterrestrial species that are helping consciously helping the ship to reproduce. And I think that's the belly in which it reproduced. God, I wish I could find that. I'm looking one more time, folks. I'm sorry. I'm only gonna be on here for a few more minutes, so don't give up on me yet. I just want to be able to show what I'm trying to illustrate or what I'm trying to say. It just makes more sense. And I found last time that people actually appreciated seeing some of this stuff. So, somehow it seems that it's just eluding me. There it is. Gosh, that's incredibly hard. Sorry, folks. This is at the anti-gravity room. Get it right. Okay, there you go. This actually gravity modification room. I just called it that because of this black box I've showed you before. Okay, the black box was like at a 90 degree. It was big, and when I look up at it, like these carbon tubes that are taken up to there, I look up at it. Okay, it is making me very dizzy. It's like it's at a 90. I think it's a 90 degree angle on the wall. That's what it was like. There's this blue beam of stuff in here that I think is some type of like perhaps not quite plutonium, but I think it's got a radiation thing to it, and that's part of what they use with the blue beam to disinfect people when they bring you into the craft with the blue beam. I believe that's also a stasis disinfection beam as well. And I've heard about ultraviolet being that too, the ultraviolet beams, but more the blue ones too. And I asked that question a lot is because I'd heard things, the difference between contactees due to melanin, that black contactees don't go through the same sterilization because it's just different. But I found that didn't hold water with the data really. It's just one of those things that's more of a myth. Okay, anyway, this room was much bigger, Ange, than what it would appear to be. It was huge. And in that way, like I said, it could be another craft being in the belly, being actually birthed in there, or they could easily have held 4 or 5 cars in there. You know what I mean? 6 cars. So in that way, I've heard that when people get actually taken, they take the car themselves and then do what they're doing with them and then put it back the same millisecond after they were taken. I've heard that several times. So the answer to your question is definite yes. Okay, I'm almost down to the end. Sorry. Okay. I wonder how many people in chat have screen memories of actual contact. Hard to tell. You have to get a regression to find out. But during a regression, I can isolate them normally. There's certain things that are giveaways to me that show that they're not, and sometimes they'll use like screen memories. I saw that my friend, I don't know if we say her real name, the girl in the gong in there, she'd mentioned that we got through some of her screen memories. One of them was so she wouldn't remember the pain. She had pain, and it's not even, that it's not for me to say whether it was a negative or positive encounter. That's for her to say. But it created a pain that they were putting a screen memory up so she wouldn't remember it. Okay. Probably all of you, Urso supervisor, I'd agree with that. I think all you that resonate with me, you're a weird bunch. No, I'm just kidding. The truth, any of you that resonate with me are actually Blue Soul Group, like I said before, I think. And most of you have had, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, so you probably had contacts that are really advanced whether you're aware of it or not. But I think probably, I agree with that. Probably most everybody in here has had missing time or something similar. Freaky Get, could dreaming about ships chasing a smaller one but no aliens seen, could that be a sign of an abduction? It could be, or just an experience, because it could also be that you're on board a craft that is actually releasing probes, or it could even be one of those craft that's like a swarm craft. And when I say that, like these UFO swarms, and they seem to show something that's called UFO mitosis, meaning there was one, they're coming 2, 3, 4, 5, but they seem to reproduce the way microcellular biology, microcellular creatures do. In that degree, like almost a type of, what is that, asexual reproduction. So yeah, so that's one thing there. So it could be that. And so a lot of times those things will seem to follow each other around, chasing each other. So it could be more of a sign of a life ship and probes in that way. Who knows? Athena, where do we find out about your regressions? You can email me at barrylittleton13@gmail.com, or you can go through my YouTube channel. One video is called the Soul Fracturing Regression. Another one is called the Gray Overlay. And another one that deals with past lives is called Live Between Lives. All those are good videos concerning the regressions. And there's another one on there. I'm sorry, I can't recall exactly. Oh yeah, the black reptilian. That's actually one video that only got minorly shadow banned. It got over like 1,500 views. For me right now, that's a miracle. I went from getting like 10,000 views or more per video years ago to going down to like barely getting 100, 200. But that one there got like 1,500 or so. It went really good. But that was a regression with somebody, a past life regression that was just fascinating. The Black Reptilian. It didn't put that out probably several months ago. It should be one of the newer videos, kind of. Anyway, that's a really good one. Athena. That's a name I don't like, and I can't stand that cat. I will speak against him forever, and I better never see that punk again. He's a liar, and I can, it's been so hard for me to not do another video. The one I have on my channel that's called the Stargate of Forgiveness. And I talked about that individual there and what he did to me when I was in Australia. I about died, okay? I was in the hospital for 20 some days. He didn't give a damn, man. He didn't even bother to come see me. He talked crap, told me to get over my surgery. I was in a surgery, okay, the first 8 hours. I was in 8 hours of surgery. I had to be left open overnight to disinfect my blood. Then the second day I was closed up in another 8-hour operation. They're calling the person that saved my life and saying, hey, he might still die. We got to seal him up tomorrow, but he's got a strong heart. But he might still die once you know he's out of the woods. He didn't give a damn about me, about that person, nothing, okay? It told me to get over my surgery because he had a shoulder graft. He had some sort of skin cancer on his shoulder. So he had to get that transplant out. I used that excuse, and that's why I didn't drive to come see you. I couldn't drive. Yeah, right. And then said, but I think that was the right thing to do. Not seeing you was the right thing to do. Look at that video I put out. I put those texts. I still got those texts that he sent to me. He wouldn't answer the phone. We're texting through messaging. I'm on Melbourne, and he's saying that stuff to me. A punk thinking he'll never see me again. If he's lucky, he won't. I'm sorry. And anybody following him, don't send his stuff to me. Don't reference him to me. I don't like that cat. He's not a good person. He's lying about half the stuff, and none of that stuff is his own stuff. Look at any of the stuff he's saying and read Michael Salla. He sounds just like him. Why in those videos I did with him is he saying hardly nothing, man? Because he don't know nothing. He's just taking stuff from other people and putting it all together and then make it like he's a guru. He's not a guru. I'm not a guru. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a counselor anymore. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a brother who's had experiences. And so you can say whatever you want about me. I'm not on I'm not on a pedestal. I'm a nobody. Okay. So I'll put it there, but I don't screw people over. I don't hurt people. And that's what that cat does. He's got a line of people he's hurt, and he'll hurt more. Okay. He actually hurt me. And I'm not easy to get to. Okay. People will tell you I'm not easy to get to know, and I'm not easy to really get in my energy field either. Some of you may already sense that. That's why I wouldn't go live. And I detect people just like that, see through people like paper. But he came at just the right time. I was just still recovering. My mom had just died. Okay. And I was really not dealing with that well. My mom was so cool, man. I mean, she was the real deal. She was so cool that all my siblings, we would all tell you, all four of us, I was my mother's favorite. She made us all feel like that. She was super cool. You know what I mean? But she died. She had a hard time going to death. I watched her deteriorate every day. It tore me up. Okay. I can see death taking people over. I could see death, and I couldn't stop it. So I was not in a good place. That first interview you saw me doing, I was not in a good place as far as I was very nervous. You can see I'm going like this because I didn't really want to do that. I was only doing it because of what my mother said, that I wasn't a brain dead vegetable like they said I would be, because I was supposed to do something important. So I did that interview with him. And now he's telling people Barry Littleton owns his fame to me. I'm not famous. And you jackass bogan, neither are you. You're not famous, and neither am I. You know, when his ex-wife threw him out as an abuser all over social media, he come to me crying. And I try to help this cat, okay? This cat's hugging me, leaving the city, driving to Hood River, hugging me. Oh, I can't get a job anymore. Dude, whatever job you ever had. You work for your mom and get fired? You didn't graduate high school. But let's never mind that. Let's play guru and quantum physicist. That's more important. That sees UFOs. Off of them, they're red ships. You know, the beings I dealt with told me don't deal with the red ships. They're negative. Just saying. Anyway, let me go back to this. I said I wasn't gonna do that. My brother's gonna kill me. Okay, anyway, Barry, do you believe we sign on for not good abductions along with the good experience as part of soul agreements? From the higher self, Rocky Mountain Watcher, yes. Yes, the super conscious, it's agreed to some degree, and it can't really be forced. You know what I mean? But I think, you know, it's so weird because people have these bad experiences here, like my brother, who doesn't really like being here, says, man, I didn't agree to this to any level. No way. But then, like, when you go under regression, you find out that you did. And on the other side, you're all blissed out when you're with these others. I remember that, being all blissed out for I came back this time, come back to help and do the work I'm supposed to do. I remember others telling me, man, you go down there and forget everything. No, I'm not. I'm bad now. I'm tough now. I know more now. And they said, man, you sure you want to do that? Yeah, I'm doing it. I went down here and I got down here and everything's fractured. Oh, no. But yeah, so that's just so in that way, you know, there's an agreement that goes on with the higher consciousness to a degree. And, you know, maybe we can say this, maybe after that, it's not all parts of us. But when that parts of us agrees, the other goes forward, because otherwise we can't really be forced. You know what I mean? Or they can't trap our soul. That's where I draw the line at this false light stuff. Okay, these are things that they're doing as we incarnate here and incarnate out, disincarnate out. That's things they're messing with here, where we're still dealing more with the human brain too. See what I'm saying? But one last thing, Rocky Mountain Skywatcher. I think it still sucks though. The negative encounters, I'm not excusing them. I'm thanking God I didn't have them. But I think it sucks, and I don't wish to be a targeted individual on anybody, man. Did you ever open a viewing portal in a craft by swapping a hand over the metal side and it turns clear? No, I didn't, but Alex did, and it was metal, and then it turned clear. USO supervisor. Had a time 5:30 a.m. Went to bed. My dog and cats opened dog. Everything went right. Had black and white. Woke up 11 a.m. fully clothed and didn't do anything I didn't need to do. If you're missing time in that way, that's a regression deal needed there. That's if I'm reading that right. I don't like his energy either. Are you talking about that bogan, Athena? Are you talking about that bogan? Just so you know, I didn't know what the hell a bogan was till I went to Australia, and my partner used that quite good to describe him. That's what she calls him. So he's a bogan, man. And what's the other word she used? Oh, he's a bogan and what is it? A yobo, a yubu, yobo. Let me quit. I get myself into trouble. All right. Athena, the lights on the ship or propulsion system. Thank you. I think that kind of depends. Sometimes I think honestly, they might also be similar to like the lights on the airplane. You know what I mean? Maybe for where they go, they can be recognized, or maybe they're a form of communication too. Maybe all three. You know what I mean? But most of the propulsion things I've seen so far, well, at least that's what I thought they were, like these crystal type of things or this C60 type thing that I'd seen. I thought that was more propulsion, but now as I've gotten older and learned more, I think actually they may be both brain and propulsion, if that makes sense. Nua Singh, that's a cool name too that I probably just butchered up. 9/11. Hi Barry, have you seen that video of flight MH370 disappearing? Do you think it was aliens? Didn't they find that? Wasn't that proven something like there are people hijacking those or something like that? Now, I don't know for sure on that, but I thought that I'd read something about that plane was like something that was hijacked and recovered or something. Now, as far as things over like the Bermuda Triangle and some of these portals, I think often you do have these craft that fly into these portals and disappear. And I think that's really well known over the Bermuda Triangle, especially. All right. And when dealing with aliens, I can't say aliens, but something that is really interesting. And I'll probably get Jessica to talk about this. I gave her the picture, but we didn't get to it because I was talking about other stuff going off topic. But it's something called the Russian flight attendant picture bomb or something like that. But it's this stewardess. Sorry, I got in trouble for calling my friend that. We're not stewardess, but we're flight attendants. Jeez, sorry, man. Anyway, this flight attendant is taking a picture. She's sitting in the chair, and behind her is this partially phased out gray / something looking thing. And when you really zoom in on it, and I think if you type in Barry Littleton on Facebook and air stewardess flight attendant mystery picture, it should come up probably. Anyway, the up close of it, when you really look at it, this thing looks like, talk about AI. This looks like something that could be a cyborg or something of that nature. It looks like it's artificial. It's got a thing coming out of its neck, almost looks like a Frankenstein type of thing. And then it's got what looks like not quite a mass, but it looks like to me, it looks like it's not biological to me. Okay. And it's kind of frightening to think of how many of these things may be phased out on board aircraft and people don't even know it. Probably be sitting in a chair with you, you wouldn't know it. And when you start thinking about what really might be piloting some of these Foo Fighters and other things, and I find it interesting, the Foo Fighters really didn't start showing up till after the atomic blast, which rips through dimensions. I think more like, I've been told, these beings told me that someone told me they were from the 16th dimension. They used the word dimension, not density. Density deals more with weight, gravity things, and volume. But dimension deals with width, breadth, all that stuff. And these beings are telling me they come from the 16th dimension upwards. Did a very interesting regression with somebody else who's very known in these circles too. And they're cool though. Jessica knows them well too. Won't mention their name though, because I don't have permission for that. But during this regression, they were moving around. There were no guides with them. They're moving, exploring on their own. And the Urantia book has a name for that. It's not the sleeping survivors, but this higher level of beings are high up. They just allowed to go on their own. They don't need escort. But then this individual in this regression, their place of translation and reconfiguration, when I took to them a past life regression, their place of translation and reconfiguration was what? I don't have that book in here. The book Earth, the Only Planet of Choice by Schwimmer, that they call the Council of Nine, calls the Zone of Cold. This individual never read that book, and they almost literally called it that. All right, the zone of cold, being connected to these filaments that were universal, almost like cosmic strings, that were attached to their soul, and there were so many of them, and at the end of each one is a different chance to incarnate at that planet, at that place. And I found that fascinating, because when dealing with the beings that I saw that were super nanofem, is what this book calls them. When I died, a type of angel that's like archangel, that high but different. Okay, these super nanofem that I saw, they were not corporeal. They were these light beings, but they seemed to have these hundreds of strands of light that compose them coming out. Okay, so when this individual is saying that, I'm thinking the end of every one of those as being a potential incarnation or something. But similar in the way I'm seeing those beings, the way they described it. And the one that they chose was Earth. One of these cords went to Earth, 19 whatever year they were born. Like I said, folks, I don't make the rules. I just got to observe them. I don't make the data. I just got to accept it to a degree. Like Jessica Jones on her data. Some of those times I'll be like, man, I shouldn't have gave her that target. Gosh, it's more like Trappist 1. That was a good one. Let's expose the slavery in the Milky Way. That's not a lie. We know that's true. We know William Tompkins is saying is true. What Tony's saying is true. Great, you know what I mean? And I've heard. I was listening to somebody talking earlier. In fact, it was today, and I can't tell you who that was now. It was somebody saying they were told never to go to different galaxies. It's just more what you ever want to deal with. It's horrible. Well, funny they say that, because these beings that I've dealt with have kind of implied to me that this galaxy is the one that's really kind of lower vibrationally. As far as dealing with these wars, whatever happened, in the higher realms for real. And that maybe that now we're dealing with what was it? I heard Neil Tyson deGrasse saying when he was expressing his non-spirituality or whatever. Anyway, he was saying, well, there were trillions of galaxies discovered now, trillions. I mean, when you start dealing with that and the possibility, today I had posted something on Facebook. It's a really cool picture of these quote unquote Lyran and Orion felines. And I think almost all coming from there comes from Alyssa Royale's book, The Prism of Lyra. Had anybody really heard about Lyra before that? I had it. It's in Kemet mentions it a little bit. And Kemet mentions some feline beings coming from there too. So I'll give some status to it there, some credit to it there. But in reality, we don't. These beings, they're telling me, these beings that communicate with them, they never use hardly any of the names that we have, unless it's for my frame of reference. At first, they were telling me names like Sector 34, Sector 589, and these weird sector stuff. Almost sounds like Borg stuff, but that's the way they're mentioning that. But then they're showing me these different Makos in some of these places, especially ones that are like colliding Makos or supermassive Makos, supermassive black holes. People were saying, I was watching these scientists saying now that one guy that does all the fast reels, he was saying everything that goes inside the black hole is destroyed. It destroys all things, all information. But that's not what Rudy says. Rudy says actually it goes into the Mako itself. So whatever's going through might be obliterated when it goes through, but it's sustained within the Mako, within the Akashic records. I think that's important. Either way it works. So anyway, all right, folks, I'm about done. Hey, Barry, ever seen a video? Oh, sorry, got one. Hey, everybody, thanks for the chat. It's going so fast. I know I fell behind, but Rita Mills. Yeah, that's what I said. Rita Miller was the one he signed. Her real name was Oda Mae, but I said it was Rita Miller. That's what she signed. It wasn't her real name. I knew that. I don't miss much. Rita Mills. I don't miss much on movie quotes. Trust me. Anyway, mm, oh, another name. I'm a 919. Amijin. Oh, Amijin Scott. My 3-year-old daughter asked me if I remember when we lived in a house with a dirt floor, and she was my mom that had me with shoes with straps. See, that's another example of these souls that incarnate with us. You know, I mentioned many times that show. Oh, Ghost and Child, Ghost Inside My Child, where they start having those kids that are talking about living before and remember all that stuff. You know, and I think that's something that's happening right now. It's becoming more and more common for kids to be born with soul life memories intact or partially intact, even more than mine were. Mine were still fractured. So I think that's maybe something that's also helping us to go forward as humanity, a saving grace, so to speak. By the way, Amy, another one. Amy's been pretty front too. She did some work with me too, and I appreciate you did really great work too. Another one. So it's cool how a lot of people from Jessica's group and audience are starting to come to me for sessions. I feel very blessed by that, and I take the sessions really serious. It's God's work. So, Athena, Black Green ETs. Hey, cool. Thank you. Hey, concerning the different types of ETs and what people on Earth, this book and the racial part that I have such many problems with, it describes all these different colored beings that have been here on Earth at one point during this epic anyway. And you know, of course, when it comes to black people, oh, they're like you know, just nobodies on Earth only. But that's why I got a problem with that book. But otherwise, the other beings it describes is very interesting. You know, I had heard long ago. In fact, somebody on the other live feed I did kept talking about the Dogon and saying that they were reptilians, or that the Dogon have reptilian this and that, and that the Nomo were reptilian. That is incorrect. The Nomos were not reptilian. The Nomos were amphibious and more fish-like. And when they actually came to Earth, their ship immediately went down into the water, and they emerged later. Okay, that's something about the Nomo. But also, there also was described, if you looked at what was it, Templin's book about the Nomo, they described in those huts up there that there were also blue beings that came, I think, with the Nomo or maybe separate, but they were supposed to be like aquatic amphibious also, but they stayed in the huts up there. Now, supposedly, some of them, or were they amphibious? I might be wrong on that one. But anyway, when the firmament fell, supposedly a lot of them, the ones that were trapped here, their blue skin turned black due to cosmic radiation. So again, that's food for thought. 69, watching a fun, interesting number. Can you help out a 69er? That's a 49er. Help out a 49er. Yeah. Wow. Great, folks. Great chat, everybody. I hope I got to most everybody. Um, ah, think you all talking among yourself now. I think I got most of the uh, most of the questions in there and everything. So, well, I gotta get me some water. Thomas Anderson. I had a mantis contact and it was strange. What was it like? You know, I mean, I'd be interested to know. Was it positive? Was it negative? you hear so many different things about the mantids, all the way from something like, what was that guy named Michael Huggins. That cat was the one that's saying that he's got all the pictures of all the naked mantids and naked grays, and they was jacking them off and doing all that stuff. Man, I said I could look at all the pictures, his illustrations. I could say, man, if you're having encounters like that, man, you're fucked. You're messed up. You're having encounters like that. Anyway, but so many different mantid mantid experiences. Another one I find really, really interesting, Thomas, is the people that report seeing these praying mantis that are over 12 feet tall, 20, 25 feet tall. They're just huge. And those are the ones that are saying a lot of times that they're the seeders of solar systems, and then they monitor the solar systems. And for me, I did a video where I actually talked about that, the Life Carriers Uranta book, and I correlated that these mantis to possibly being a type of what this book calls life carriers that are dispatched and create actually life on all the planets and in the solar systems, yada yada. But they don't really talk about what containers for consciousness the life carriers go through in their incarnation cycles. It's not really said in here what they look like. Are they non-corporeal? Are they corporeal? Is one part of them, but one part of them could possibly be praying mantis looking? Who knows? Again, this is something that's good food for thought. Okay, I'm about done, everybody. I'm about out of here. Rita had one too. Mantis deal. Wow, insectoids. Now I've showed you the insectoid I dealt with, which is Yandar / Xandar. And the picture that I showed you is not the one where he has on the accurate uniform. But you can look at that's on my channel, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, it's just he looked much more like a grasshopper or a locust, opposed to just a mantid. And most importantly, his and here's a cool picture. I'm just gonna show. Oh, here he is. But on my channel, you'll see the actual uniform he had on was white. It was not. That's the uniform she put on. It's not what he had on. But that does look like him, though. Okay, and he had body proportions similar to when I was a young man. Okay, so this was not like one of those matches that looked like that or anything. But then when dealing with the different amount of actually insectoid beings, it's unreal. Here's another one. Him again. When he approached me when I was a kid, he'd come up. You have this bike. It was a Schwinn, like one of them old school Schwinns, and he had on a hat and these goggles that looked like kitty cats, as my mother would have called them. And like my brother had seen this individual. He's washing his car, so it's not like. And my brother didn't say, "Hey man, what was that big old bug standing there?" That bug humanoid, insectoid. He's doing something with his optical nerves that made him appear more human than when in that situation. Something else I'm going to show you real quick before I get out of here. What was it? Where the heck is it? Oh, here it is. This is just a cool picture. And it's what Kasara did. It's that engine, okay? That quasi-crystal engine. And standing by is one of the Andromedan, the little blue cats. And then also Mana. Mana standing next to it. I got more responses on Mana than any other being I think I've shown, except for maybe the throne beings. And I'm gone after the throne beings. Let me get out of here. Oh, here we go. The throne beings. This was what incident when I was bilocated during the experience. Okay, I was bilocated right out of my living room after I was out practicing the Gate of Power by Carlos Castaneda, based off the Great Walkers, and I start having this experience. And it was conscious. I'm dealing with these, and I can see in my mind's eye, I can see these beings that look like they're light beings, but they're moving around in my mind's eye the way spiders that walk on water, those bugs that walk on water, move in those weird patterns. They're doing patterns like that. And when I did a regression, that's what I thought that this was just with them. And I just wanted to try to, I was asking them what they look like and stuff, why they wouldn't show themselves, if they were gray aliens. And they were sending me back flashes of like a couple of those beings on the autopsy and other different grays. They said that they got a humor out of that too. And they did not, that was not them. But then I do this regression, just trying to figure out more about these guides. And I realized that these beings sent my own guides to distract my physical body while they bilocated me for this experience. And that's what these beings look like. It's like I was in space and I'm looking at them. Okay. It's like, I call them throne beings because it seemed like they're on these pillars of light that was like a throne. And in the middle of each one of them, they had these like these quasi crystal things, that these crystals that were glowing of it. They're all different color anyway, but the crystals grew that color, glowed that the biochemical luminescence glowed that as well. And you know, their tops of their head was like these strands of light that seemed like it just went back into space, infinitesimal. And the one that steps forward to me first is this one, the blue one. And this name, one of the few beings give me a name, Burndetty, like Burndette. And I recognize the name because it reminds me of Thelma from Good Times. Her real name is Bernadette Stannis, and I used to have a thing for Thelma. Anyway, so yeah, that's this, and I think what this represents, the crystal in the middle of their chest, I think that represents the soul groups. Okay, I'm Blue Soul Group. That's why this one stepped out to me first. The other one that stepped out after that one, Bernadette stepped back. This one steps forward, the yellow one, golden one. This one steps forward. And then suddenly it's sitting like in this, almost like a king's chair inside some sort of a chamber that is completely clear. And there's an apparatus around its head, but it's containing some of the light. So it's not all going out in the universe anymore. It's containing only some of it. Okay. And this being is putting in my mind, the warp fields of your thoughts affect reality. And, you know, I had to comprehend that for a while, because for me, warp fields is something similar to what we're talking about, the time technology, stuff like that. But actually, when dealing with the magnetic fields of our invisible thoughts and how they can actually warp reality, I get it now. And what they're representing, you know, I try to get a name from them, and what I got was Pleiadians. And I just threw throne beings on it, so I call them Pleiadian throne beings. And I say that, not Pleiadians, because automatically I question that. But they're saying, no, we're over that sector of space. And again, I think they also represent the Trinity. So those and mana would be the most responses I got on any entities that I've shown, beings I've shown, that I've had illustrated. So that's that. I'm gonna wrap this up, folks. I'm look one more time through here. Try to get all the way to the end. Oh wow, I'm still not. Wow, you guys are really cooking. That's fantastic. Right at the end, I have two similar beings, those incredibly beautiful, most pure high essence. Yes, agree. Rocky Mountain Skywatcher. Athenia, thank you for scanning. Oh, you know, one other thing about these. Mary Rodwell. Now I sit next to her. I sit between her and Linda Moulton Howe. When I came back from my harrowing experience in Australia, okay, I stayed there a month after that conference was over. There a month before his conference started, and there a month after it ended, okay? And when I got uninvited to that conference for being in the hospital, it was on December 24th, Christmas Eve. I'm out of my time, out of my country. He messages my woman through Messenger, won't respond to me, say he better call us right now or he's going to be out. MF put me out. I won't be threatened by you or anybody. And I'm trying to call him and go get reeled in to get this stuff removed, okay? So anyway, I got back from Australia, and that harrowing experience and healed and, you know, very much functioning and everything. I had 2 days at home and I flew to LA to speak privately and been on a panel at the Life Conscious Expo, the biggest conference I've ever seen. Anyway, during that time, the one conference, one of the panels I'm speaking on, I have Mary Rodwell on one side of me and Linda Moulton Howe on the other. Very exciting. And I got there early to set up, and Mary got there early. We're sitting right next to you. So poor Mary had to endure talking to me for like 15 minutes. And, you know, I had mentioned to her because she has pictures from some younger contactees that have these beings that they've drawn that, I don't know if they call them hybrid. Actually, I think they call them Wagina there. But they have these crystals in their chest, similar to these beings. Now, they don't look exactly the same, but it makes me think, you know, could those be offspring of these or some sort of connection somehow genetically with these crystal things in the chest? I just found that interesting. I believe, pretty sure Mary told me it was a younger contactees that had drawn that, several of them. Anyway, so that's that. Are those seraphim? These throne beings, you can look up throne beings. It's like a biblical term, kind of. So I can't really say. You know, you've got all these different types. You've got seraphim, you've got sanobim, you've got cherubim, you know, but you've got the Trinity. The Trinity always seems to occur in the threes, and these are in threes. So that way I can't say. They call themselves Plegarians, but oh gosh, there is a term in this Uranta book that I think very much describes these beings. Oh, sorry, y'all. It's kind of late. I'm kind of cooked. I'll look it up. I'll find it. Okay, but there's a name in this book that kind of describes these beings and describes them kind of coming in threes and being over parts of space, relegating parts of space. So there is a name in that book for them. I'll try to find it and I'll type it in or something. I think I've reached the end of it. That's everybody. Yeah, see, interesting. Even here, a lot of responses on the throne beings. How cool is that, man? Again, the I say soul groups. My primitive knowledge, the way I was taught, the soul groups are organized similar to our color spectrum. Roy G. Biv. Red, orange are your, I don't want to say younger, maybe less experienced, less mature souls, as to where your indigo and your violet are your most experienced. And when you go all the way through violet in that, you can go and actually choose the soul group that you're most affiliated with. For me, it's the blue soul group. And I've noticed how many people that follow me or even take time to listen to what I'm saying, not everybody, but a lot of them tend to be blue soul group. So look that up. You know, I've heard a lot of things that the blue ray, they call them all sorts of stuff. So anyway, that's that. I want to thank everybody for being here with me. Okay. I haven't been able to see how many people are in chat the whole time. Thank you, Jessica, for being my new moderator. Appreciate everybody. Thank you all for being here again. I apologize what happened earlier. Apparently my drivers had to be updated, and I update my drivers all the time, but for whatever reason, just before that live, they need to be updated again. So anyway, everything that went over there, I went here, looking through everything. Yeah, that's all of it. That's all of it. Cool. Thank you all very much. Much love. Hey, let me know in the comments section something else. If I get the testicular fortitude to do another one of these, please let me know what you would like for me to maybe talk about, discuss. Choose something from my, if you want, choose something from my YouTube. I mean, there's 366 videos there, I think. Choose one from there. I'll be happy to talk about it, go on a live about it, and do it like that. So please let me know, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you. If anybody is wanting services and hypnosis, I do past life regressions, ET regressions, earthbound spirit release rescue, trauma release, negative identity dissolvement, Also anti-smoking and weight loss as well. So those are all things there. And sure, there's something I'm missing, but that's most of it. And I do readings as well. I dig the readings, but man, they're not as cool as the hypnosis in terms of it empowers you as the client, because it's your own consciousness, your super conscious. You're just accessing it. And, you know, unless you're somebody that always lies to yourself, you shouldn't have many problems. You know, it's pretty cool. Hey, thanks everybody. Mars connections. I'll leave on that one. Okay, Maestro, you got me. Okay, Mars connections. You know, there's several I've heard. One is that you have insectoid species that were there in the video I did, Insectoids Part 2, and it's in there. If you go to playlist and interdimensional extraterrestrial beings on the playlist, you'll find it. There's Insectoids 1. This is Insectoid 2. And I've got a couple pictures on there that Tony Rodriguez had given me during the interview him and I did that no one's heard, but people on this Patreon. But it's a type two insectoids he said he'd experienced there. Okay. And also Charlene Wallace, who I've spoken to a few times, but actually she's part of a contactee people of color panel that I'm on. Her and her sister Earlene, so I got to talk to her a little bit more. And you know, she wrote the book, The UFO Twins. Her and her sister, they've had a lot of experiences, and a lot of it was on Mars. And they described seeing a melanated type of, not a gray, but short like a gray, little gray, but like a melanated beings that said they came from not Beetlejuice, not Beetlejuice. Gosh, I'm sorry. I've got it on my channel. It's on there. Whatever it is they said they came from. But anyway, it's oh boy. See, I'm starting to get lost what I'm actually talking about. You see, I just see. Oh, Mars connection. See, I'm tired. Okay. Anyway, I'm finishing up on this. Anyway, the insectoids he showed me 2 times. Charlene Wallace said she's seen these melanated beings there that look quite similar to like supposedly in our entertainment. Where that comes from is Marvin the Martian. See how dark he is. He's supposed to be based on those beings. And it was God, where is the name? But it's not a common place where they say they're from. I keep wanting to say Bennu, but I keep thinking asteroid Bennu, but it's like Ben. It's on my YouTube channel. Anyway, just that's a place, the type that she had said she'd seen there. Okay, so we've got insectoid, we've got potentially these, and then also a video I had done is over the Olmecs. And if you really look at the Olmec heads, okay, and then look at the face on Mars, they look quite similar. Okay, and when start dealing with that, there was a book called the Mars Cydonia Codex. And on there, the 2 gentlemen that wrote that make many, many comparisons between like the Venetian mask that's in the Mayan temple. That was in the Mayan temple that was found, the Venetian mask and the sun mask. And they're comparing these to like that face on Mars and other things. So we start dealing with that. You know, we're dealing with a couple of things. One is possible Mayan connections there, and also Olmec connections there. The Olmecs, maybe I've heard that they had origin in the constellation Centaurus, but that they went there afterwards. Again, this is food for thought. Things to look up, things to research. I'm out of here. Thank you all for being here. Much love to everybody in the chat. Much love to Jessica for helping me out here and helping me get my damn sound straightened out. That would suck bad. But all the information's in this one, so I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you so much for the support and for being here. And one last thing, man, I always said that if I reached 5,000 subscribers, I would get off YouTube. Then it just kept going. There was 8,000. And if I said, okay, if I ever make it to 10,000, I'm gonna get off. But now I'm not saying I'm going to quit, but I would like to make it eventually like 15,000 subscribers. I think that for me is just like a lifelong accomplishment. I never thought this would go this far. I never thought I'd have 13.4 on here. Are you kidding? I can't believe it. So it's been a blessing. Please share the video, subscribe, get your friend to subscribe, tap the bell, hit it twice to make sure you get notified if I put something else out, and let me know in the chat, at least the after chat after this goes off live. Let me know anything you might want me to discuss on next live if I do another one, and if you can hear me. So please let me know. Thank you all. Much energy, much love to everybody. Peace.